Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of Dyer's Place. Tonight, as you can tell, it's going to be Dyer's Toybox, which was actually the name of an Instagram account I had at one point. But Mike's off tonight because of personal issues. But however, joining me are Prime. Hey, Prime.
Good evening.
Yep. And Jay.
Hello.
And Snarb.
Ahoy, hoy.
All right. Ahoy, hoy. Got to keep those Simpsons references going even without Mike here.
Of course.
So tonight,
keep the dollar.
So tonight we're going to be discussing pretty much all our favorite toy lines, or as many as we can squeeze into the next 3 hours. And you can see some of the major representatives up there. So,
including one that's probably going to scare a lot of retro game fans here.
You're not kidding about that, Prime. I mean, if I didn't know that they were a toy manufacturer before I saw they were, producing video games, I'd have been scared off by them too. Now, let's see here. According to the National Toy Hall of Fame, they awarded the title of oldest toy to the stick. Now, who here didn't play with, sticks when you were kids?
Of course.
See,
Yeah.
Universal, at least at our time anyway.
Oh, yeah, you're not kidding. It's like, before I had any, Star Wars official stuff, if I wanted to go out and play as Han Solo or something like that, I had to find a, gun-shaped stick and pretend it was my blaster.
Get the trick.
Yeah. And I never did get an official Han Solo blaster either. I did end up getting a lightsaber, though, when Return of the Jedi came out.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't one of those light up or extendable ones. It was just, you could press a button, it would make sounds, but that was about it.
Oh, yeah, that's better than nothing.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
For sure.
And better than having to use a broomstick to be the lightsaber.
Oh, boy. Let's not.
Oh, come on. You want to fly?
Can you fly, Bobby? Hey, Mo's here.
Hey, Mo.
Oh, hey, Mo.
Hello.
So, all right. Well, let's see. We got somebody here. Are we coming through okay, Mo?
I sure hope so. Consider the night so far.
Also, my apologies if you can hear my sister on the mic. She's talking to my dad, and she has a tendency to talk loud.
Don't hear anything, so that's good.
Yep, Mo said we're coming through, so
Excellent.
cool.
Okay, good.
Good to hear.
Yeah, Mike may go ahead and pop into the chat at some point, but he's sitting tonight out. Which means I probably won't have to use the soundboard for anything. Darn it.
Okay, so we're going to have to pick up the slack so that he can.
Yeah. Well, Mike, if you're listening now, this is for you. Well, anyway, how should we kick this off, do you think? Do we want to...
Oh, there he goes. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Hey,
you are.
Mike. Take it easy, man.
Exactly. Get some rest. So, exactly how should we kick this off here? We already talked about the stick, so...
Well, we each have our own avatars. I think at least two of those will be recognizable for most people.
I would think
with
so.
two of them maybe being a little bit more up in the air.
Well, why don't we just go on down the line here? Prime?
Oh, great. Just put me on the spot right in the beginning.
Oh, if you want, I can
true.
start
No,
and go
just-
the other way. Snarb.
I'm just playing, it's like
I know.
with Mike not being here, I've gotta, gotta do something wild on here. But yeah, because it'll be weird because we're talking about stuff out of order. But GI Joe, I got into that weirdly because before that there was a line called Micronauts. It started in Japan, and the people who brought it over here was a company named Mego. And when I saw the GI Joes on the toy aisle, they kind of reminded me of Micronauts with the articulation and the side, the same size, same articulation and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I ended up getting into it. That was before that was before I even saw any commercials for it. They were just there. And that kind of makes my GI Joe journey different from most people because they either saw the cartoon or they saw a commercial or they saw the comic book. But I just said, man, these things look cool, so let me just start buying them. And slowly but surely, it just became my favorite line.
Well, it's definitely a good line. I can say that. I mean, I had my own experience getting into GI Joe. I basically started off on the ground floor with that, and I too don't remember seeing any commercials or comics. I do remember stumbling across some action figures in the local Denny's, which was kind of a general catch-all place. You get all sorts of things there. And I was intrigued by Flash. So
Yeah, he looks cool.
yeah, so parents got him for me, and that was the beginning of GI Joe for me. Now, as far as me, I mean, you got to be able to recognize Indiana Jones. This indie is from the short-lived Adventures of Indiana Jones line by Kenner, which started in 1982, a year after Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. And it was pretty much exclusively devoted to Raiders. I mean, it was the only movie, so it makes sense. I'll get more into that later, though. How about you, Jay?
Honestly, I don't have a crazy story about this particular one. I just wanted to have this toy when I was younger, mainly because I happen to like Robotech in the first place. One of the other podcasts that we did. And this is Rick Hunter, so one of my favorite characters from that series. And I just wanted to represent the toy I wanted back when I was a kid. So that's the reason why I went this route.
Makes sense to me. And Snarb, you probably have the most obscure one here.
Obscurish, yes. This is from Kenner's 90s Alien toy line. Specifically, this one is the Rhino Alien, which this is one of those figures I always wanted as a child, but I actually got it as an adult collector, and there are actually two versions of it. That's the original version. It has sort of this red, almost magma kind of color. It's translucent. And then there's one that's like this dark, I don't know if it's like a navy blue or some kind of like very like dark purple, and then it has like a silver coat on top of it. It's really cool, but I have two of those now, and sure enough, I would have probably loved it as a child, and that's something I'll have to go into a little bit, once we get into the collecting talk.
I remember my younger brother had some of the Aliens toys.
They were great.
He didn't have the Rhino one, but he did have the Bull one.
I had the Bull as well, yes. That was one of the first that was released along with the Gorilla and the Scorpion. I had all three of that first wave, first set. I think my favorite was the Gorilla, which eventually they reused the mold for the Mantis, which became my next favorite. But the whole line is pretty good. I never got the human figures until I was an adult, though. I got Bishop, and that's a really good figure. About G.I. Joe size, not as posable, but pretty good. No
Nice.
worries.
All right, so I don't know about you guys, but my toy experience, obviously, besides starting when I was a kid, started in the late 70s. I mean, I know I had toys before that. There was, your typical toddler toys, building blocks and little people and things like that. And I remember seeing some stuff in about 79, but I didn't pay much attention to it until about a year or two later, after I'd seen The Empire Strikes Back for the first time. And I was with my niece and nephew at the time, by marriage. So as such, they were a couple years older than me, but what they had was some of the original Star Wars figures by Kenner. And I loved Empire, and I loved these figures when I got to see them, so naturally I started badgering my parents for them. And I distinctly remember the first few that I got, actually. The first one I ever picked out was actually Princess Leia in her Bespin gown. And after that came a Rebel soldier in his Hoth gear, and then R2-D2. And I think for my birthday that year, I got Darth Vader, C-3PO, Snowtrooper, and Chewbacca. And for Christmas, kind of rounded everything out with Luke, Han, and Lando. And not to mention the first of the vehicles I got, which was, I think, an X-Wing and a TIE Fighter. Now, I was talking to my father earlier tonight, and I'd mentioned to him, it's like, this, you and Ma were kind of partially responsible for the stream we're doing tonight. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, it's all about toys. The kind of stuff we had growing up in the 80s and whatnot. He's like, oh, well, okay then. So I said, I'm going to talk about Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and all this other cool stuff. So for the next couple of years, Star Wars was just my bread and butter. I just, got as many action figures as I was allowed to get. Usually Christmas, birthday, and end of school were the big time for that. Although every so often, if we'd gone out and had been good, they might treat us to one, me and my brother both, because he got into it too. And that's really where it went with me. So how about you, Prime? Where did you start out?
I don't remember the earliest, the really earliest toys like you said, but the main thing that I remember first was probably the Mego World's Greatest Superhero figures. And that was one of the rare times when one company had the license for both Marvel and DC. There's I'm trying to think of a way to describe it. They were 8 inches tall, and they had real clothing. Most people listening or watching probably know them from the Toy Fair magazine. I think they called it Twisted Mego Theater.
Huh.
And they would usually have Spider-Man doing something really weird or reacting to something really weird. But I started with those. I got into, of course, I think a lot of us got into Lego. I think the first set I had was like a small space set with one of the astronaut figures. So that's still a favorite. But after that, of course, like everybody else, at that age, I got into Star Wars. And I think that became my favorite scale. And then everything just kind of worked in from there. A lot of the stuff I liked was just related to the Star Wars scale. The 3.75 inch tall figures. They were small enough so that you could actually get an affordable vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think that's what got me hooked, even though I didn't really stick around in Star Wars as long as most people did.
I know what you mean by that, though. I actually remember being disappointed by some of the later toy lines because they were so much bigger, like Masters of the Universe and Thundercats, or in one case, a lot smaller. That'd be Mask.
Yeah.
It's like these should all be the same size as G.I. Joes and Star Wars.
And the funny thing is, for a while, because of the success of Star Wars, a lot of other people started making things in that same size. The funny thing is, I think the Japanese version of Micronauts, it was called Microman. It was a spinoff of another toy line. I think they started off in that size before Star Wars did, but I'm not sure. That's something I'd have to look up again, because they started on that kind of early.
Well, I know one line I remember seeing in stores and later actually getting to play with one of the figures was the Star Trek The Motion Picture ones. And I thought they looked boring and just dull compared to Star Wars.
Yeah, I remember when those hit. But they did have really, really good head sculpts for them, though.
Yeah, I got to give them that.
Yeah,
And,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say also, just I think late last year in a local antique store, I actually found MASH figures from the same era.
Oh yeah.
I would have bought a couple of them, except they were like $30 a piece. They were still on the card and everything.
Dang.
I know they had Colonel Potter, and I think they had Hot Lips and maybe even Klinger. But it's been a while.
Yeah, the Star Wars effect kind of hit the toy sellers too, because one like everybody's heard the stories of how everybody else passed on the Star Wars license, but Kenner, they said, I know nobody's going to want to buy a bunch of science fiction weird stuff like this.
Yeah.
And Kenner picked it up, small toy company, and it became a hit. So everybody else started doing figures in that size, because even Mego, they had the DC and Marvel license. They came out with the there were two different lines. There were Pocket Heroes, and I think one just called Comic Book Heroes, and they were Mego sized. Except they could also twist it. Some of them could twist at the waist.
Oh, okay.
So,
And hey, Brandon.
Oh hey, what's up, Brandon? It's like, so you could. That was one of the first. Well, for me, one of the first lines where you could start crossing characters over. But Mego, they were doing multiple sizes. They had, I mean, multiple lines in that 8-inch line that I was talking about before. Because they had I didn't know what Star Trek was yet, but they had Star Trek in that line. Uh, they had a bunch of TV licenses. But yeah, once Star Wars sold the way it did, I mean, the toy sellers, they stopped passing up an opportunity, because like, we don't want to lose another one like Star Wars again. So at a certain point in the early 80s, you could find in the late 70s too, you could find a lot of stuff in that size. Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers. There was a Flash Gordon line. It was a comic based Flash Gordon line. It wasn't based on the movie yet. I don't even know if the movie was out yet.
I know
But
that did continue on into the 80s too, because they also had the Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider in that size.
yep, and Chips.
Yeah, chips.
In fact, some of the early prototype figures, even in the little GI Joe inserts, one of the Cobra Trooper characters is a customized Chips figure, because the whole thing of they didn't think bad guys were going to sell, and somebody told them, "Hey, you need to have somebody for these characters to fight."
Yeah.
So they started working on Cobra, and they didn't have it finished yet, so they customized a Chips figure because it was the same size.
That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it's a trip. If you look at the insert, it's not the figure that came out, it's the prototype.
You know, that makes me think of something I saw once too. When they were originally designing Star Trek: The Next Generation, they'd had like a small bridge set up to kind of give you an idea what the bridge would look like, or the model makers anyway. And they had G.I. Joe figures in there. But they were all like spray painted different colors and stuff. You know, Brandon, there actually is a set of Golden Girls figures out there. Reaction put it out.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I saw those. And there's, I think, is it NECA that has the Jessica Fletcher, whatever her name is, from Murder, She Wrote?
Yeah, that's her name, but I've never seen that figure.
There's that 8-inch clothed figure that I mentioned from Mego, that burned into a lot of older people's memories, like mine, and they've done a lot of revival figures. Mego actually came back into existence a while back, and they're making figures again in that style. But other people kind of carried the torch of it, and NECA does quite a few of those. I think they've got a Murder, She Wrote figure.
Yeah, nice. And Bo says that the Star Trek: The Next Generation toys were so her jam back in the day. Now, are you talking about the big ones by, I think Playmates did them, or the earlier ones that were about the size of G.I. Joes? So I remember the early ones. They didn't last very long. But the Playmates ones came later and basically went over like every series they had. You still have your Picard, huh? Make it so.
Engage.
So anyway, yeah, where were we?
I think we got into the whole thing about the 3 3/4 inch figures and kind of rambled off from there.
Yeah, it's true. So we can always move on to Jay.
Oh boy, I don't remember my earliest memory of toys in terms of what I had, but I do remember some of the ones that I had started. May the force be with you.
Hey, Bruno.
But no, I just like almost everybody else so far. Some of the earlier ones that I do remember is like having the Star Wars toys and things like that. But I remember going to the park and hanging out with my friends, and we'd trade toys and things like that. I don't know if you guys ever did things like that.
Yes, I did that a few times.
Yeah, it was just a lot of fun to do. Trade a toy so you can have that different toy for a little while, then we'll trade back, and it's been a lot of fun doing that. But it would have been like Star Wars that I really grew up with, and Transformers for sure, because that was one of the biggest cartoons that I would watch, and I would get that next toy that we always see in the commercials. Like, oh, they're coming out with a new one. I gotta go get that. And it was. I think those are the earliest memories I have. Would have been the Star Wars. He-Man was another thing too, because that was pretty big at the time. Although I do agree the toys were bigger compared to like your G.I. Joe character, and I'm like, this is weird scaling, but at the time I tried to make it work with playing with my toys.
Yeah, so did I actually.
You just act like they were a bunch of giants or something.
Exactly.
I think those are the biggest toys that I had when I was young. The Star Wars for sure, because I'm as old as the first Star Wars film, and that was a big thing in our household. Like almost my entire family is Star Wars oriented versus Star Trek. Even though I do like Star Trek as well, mostly the TNG. Okay, I saw a little buffer for a second there. Hopefully
I saw that too.
Yeah, my internet connection is dipping into the red and then going back up. So,
Okay.
It shouldn't be a major issue, but you might get the occasional buffering.
Okay, well, hopefully it stays good.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But I think my earliest memory would have been like Empire Strikes Back, getting the toys from that too. I think that was the first movie I saw at the theaters, even though it was free. We wanted to see it at the drive-in. Drive-in there, they were a thing.
Yes.
I think there's still a couple places that still do it, but I missed that.
Second time I saw Empire in theaters was actually at a drive-in.
That wasn't a great experience, wasn't it?
That was something. I basically, after I saw it for the first time with my brother and his family, and when I got home, all I could talk about was this great movie, and I basically begged my parents to take everyone to see it. So we had a local drive-in. Yeah. We went up there, and there you were.
Amazing. I missed that experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had like Hot Rod, Optimus. I had a lot of the G.I. Joes. I don't remember all the specific ones, but I just love playing the toys. I tried to get the Transformers and G.I. Joe. The crossover we always wanted.
Yeah.
It was I miss those days.
They did do a comic series, a crossover G.I. Joe and Transformers, I think. It was like a limited series.
I think so. That's true.
I think the first cover was Bumblebee getting blown up or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. If I remember correctly, the whole plot had basically the Decepticons teaming up with Cobra and G.I. Joe teaming up with the Autobots. And the Decepticons double-crossed the Cobra, so they had to work with the Autobots and G.I. Joe.
Mhm.
Yeah, they crossed over. They crossed over a few times. They in the late part of the GI Joe run, when they started Transformers Generation 2, when those toys came back, they kind of even hinted at it before, because you remember Destro had that castle that could change shape, and you on one of the pages of GI Joe, you saw some word balloons that looked like the old Transformers comic word balloons, and I was like, "Oh, here we go." And sure enough, it was the era when Megatron was a tank, and I think part of that was Cobra giving him his body or something like that.
Wow.
I'd forgotten that he was a tank at one point.
I had that tank. He was pretty cool.
Yeah, Generation 2.
I'd gotten out of Transformers before Generation 2 happened.
Yeah, Generation 2 got me back into it. That was some good
That's
stuff.
interesting.
Well, yeah, that's just, I don't know. I dropped off in the tail end of the 80s because I was growing up. There's really no other way to put it. So
That's fair.
Yeah. So, if there's anything else you wanted to add, Jay, we'll move on to Snarb.
Well, there's a lot of toys we can get into. So
we'll have time for that.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. So how about you, Snarb?
Well, I'll start this off by saying, as a toy collector, I'm very unfaithful. I'll usually just buy something if it looks cool. I've only collected maybe a couple of lines, 2, 3, or 4. But I always wondered why that was, and then I thought about it, and it's like, that mirrors my early toy experience. The first new toy I can remember ever getting was Snaptrap, the leader of the Piranhacons, and I loved the crap out of that thing. I played with it so much, I even broke off one of its legs, transforming it so much. And I just remember really just loving that thing even after I broke it. And the rest of my toys up to until I was like 4, 5, or 6 were mostly hand-me-downs from the 80s. There were a lot of kids, that were growing up that were in my neighborhood that, they were friends of my parents, and they're like, "Hey, we have some old toys. Would your son like them?" And they're like, "Sure." So somehow I ended up with a huge, weird mix of stuff. I had the Matchbox Invid Trooper Fighter, whatever that big purple thing with the cannons was. I had the torso to a GoBots combiner. I had Hordak, Mantenna, and Leech. I had a headless Weird Wolf. Sadly, I think that might be why the Headmasters are my favorite, because I had that figure, and then later I learned, he had a little head, a little guy that transforms into his cranium, and I was like, mind blown. But I just had this odd mix of things, and it also transferred over into the newer toys I would get. Eventually, I got 1 or 2 GI Joes. A very late era. The one I remember the most is a figure named Cesspool, who was part of the Eco Warriors, and it's just totally like that transitional period between the 80s and 90s where it's kind of going for more colorful neon, a little bit more extreme. Very fun figure. I also got some of the Beetlejuice figures. They made some of those. Those were really fun. At least Beetlejuice was. I didn't get anything outside of 1 or 2 of those. I think I had a couple Toxic Crusader figures. But the memories I have the most that I really love were with the Transformers figures I would get, whether they were hand-me-downs or new. And some of the first new ones I remember actually getting were the Action Masters. I believe I had Jazz. It was whoever had the skateboard in that line. I think that was Jazz.
That was Jazz.
Yeah, that was such a cool little accessory. I think I might have had Grimlock as well. I don't remember his accessory as well, but something about him seems really similar. And I also had
one of the like the little squatty robots with a cannon on top or something.
Yes, that sounds right. I might have had Soundwave as well, but the crown jewel was the huge armored convoy Optimus Prime figure. That was the first Optimus I ever had, and I suspect that's why I'm such a huge fan of the character since. it wouldn't be until G2 that I got the actual, a reprint or a remold, whatever you want to call it, of the original figure. But I just remember loving that Armored Convoy so much. I know a lot of Transformers fans kind of look back on like the Pretender, Action Master, that kind of era with very mixed sort of reception, but I really liked it. Even though the figures didn't transform, their vehicles did. It was basically like Mask. It was like Hasbro kind of winking and nodding at Mask and kind of doing them one better. Plus, they were very posable compared to some of the early Transformer figures, which would be like a brick with movable arms.
Yeah.
So it was very nice to have a figure that looked like the cartoon show, because I would either catch reruns of that or watch it on VHSs that we would rent. And it was nice to have something that looked like that. And then you had this big vehicle it could, ride around in, and that would transform. Later, before G2, I would also get into was it the Micro Masters line? That was the other that was the closest I ever came to collecting, Transformers as a child, is I got so many of those. I think what was my favorite one? I'm trying to remember. There were so many, though, but I think my favorite were always the one that were like two figures that would combine. Like there was one that was like a blue, like military Jeep, and it would connect to like a missile system or something. And again, these were tiny. These were like micro machine sized kind of figures. And,
jeez,
yeah, they were just really good. Even at that scale. That's most of my memories up until the 90s, and I'm sure we'll get into that more, because that's when I actually started collecting lines or, seriously thinking about it more. It's just kind of interesting how much of my memories are just like they're other people's toys, basically, and I really appreciate that. I really think about that, and I hope that tradition is still carried on today, because you guys were talking about like, oh, we wanted the figure scale to be about G.I. Joe size. Well, I guess because I had such a weird mix of figures, I would just try to figure out a story for them anyway, because I wasn't as familiar with the stuff, the lore, because either I couldn't read because I was too young, or the shows had gone off the air, and it was like, that's all I had. So it's like, it was really mind-blowing to see Toy Story years later pulling the same kind of narrative with toys that I was cooking up, that they're just this ragtag weirdo bunch of like, heroes and villains. Yeah, that's true, BL85. Yeah, a lot of them will just pawn them off. But that happened when I was a kid, too. I had a friend that had, like, his whole NES collection just sold by his parents, and that included stuff like Metal Storm, and I heard that, and I was like, oh. Wow. And same thing with toys, like when I got to be a teen, my parents were like, oh, you have to sell all your toys now, and, they had to box them up and ship them out. And some kids don't mind that, they've outgrown it. They're like, yeah, that's fair. And then other people are more sentimental, they get attached to it, I've lost some figures over the years that I've recollected just because I missed them that much. In other cases, they're like on my holy grail list or whatever you want to call it. Maybe more of a beige whale list, if it swims up to me, I might throw a harpoon at it. I believe that term was coined by Cathoid Ray Dude. He was talking about collecting vintage computers, but it's the same with toys. Sometimes there are those ones you have to have, and then there are other ones that are like, well, good price. If it swims up, I might chuck some harpoons at it.
You got a good point there. I remember as I started to outgrow stuff, like in the mid-'80s, I was, Star Wars was basically over and done with. And this is after the Power of the Force line, the original Power of the Force line came out. The ones that had the collector's coins in the packages. Mm-hmm. And I ended up taking what I had left out of my Star Wars collection and just giving it to my brother. And in the early 90s, I still had the majority of my Transformers and G.I. Joes, packed away in storage. And as the 90s went on, I slowly sold those off. Like there was this one kid who was a friend of my brother's who was really interested in buying my G.I. Joe collection, which at that point was pretty much just the action figures. And I made him a deal, $50, which I then went out and bought a copy of Dallas 3 for the Genesis with.
Nice.
And then with the Transformers, I either traded some of them to my brother for, like, my brother had gotten the Revenge of Shinobi. He wasn't crazy about it, and I was like, well, I could trade you some of my Transformers for it, because he was starting to collect the Transformers again. So he picked out the ones he wanted. I got Revenge of Shinobi. I still got it.
Yeah.
And I sold a few off to some collectible stores, gave some to a former friend of mine, and by the end of the decade, they were all gone except for Hot Rod, and he went in the Great Crash. So, but as far as collecting any of those again, I don't have anything G.I. Joe. As much as I every so often see something, it's like, that'd be cool to have again, but ultimately, I'm like, no. Funny story once, though. I had a small collection of original Star Wars figures literally walk through my door one day. And what had happened is that my oldest stepdaughter, at the time, it was her boyfriend, he came in and he showed me these figures that used to belong to his uncle who'd passed away. And at the end, there were some good ones in there too. I mean, like, a lot of Empire Strikes Back figures, a few Return of the Jedi. Most of them were in decent shape. Some of them had tanning and staining and stuff that was never going to go away. But after he's done showing all these off, he just hands the bag to me. He's like, "You can have them." Turns out he likes the stuff, but he dislikes clutter. And to him, that's clutter.
Yeah.
So I cleaned them all up as best as I could. I got them all stashed now in protective packaging. Coolest thing was there was a Boba Fett in there.
Oh, that's good.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was a nice surprise. Other than that, I should probably talk more about the line before I actually get into what happened there. But, all my toys from the 80s just eventually went, with one exception that I still have. And that is my original Indiana Jones action figure. Not the same one as my Avatar there. I got that from elsewhere. But, okay. For those of you that don't know, the Adventures Indiana Jones toy line, it was also by Kenner. And they basically did the same thing they did with Star Wars, except on a smaller scale. And they changed the articulation a little bit. And they also included things like, fast draw action, basically spring-loaded arms. And when they released these figures originally, like I said, it was all from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Because there were no other movies out yet. And you had most of the major characters from the movie. There were a couple exclusive figures that came with some of the few playsets they did. Like, if any of you remember the scene in the movie where Indy goes to the map room and he's dressed up as one of the diggers. Yeah, the figure that came with the map room actually, was dressed like that. And yeah, Sharon is here.
Hey, Sharon.
Hey, Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
So, and they also had a Streets of Cairo playset. And if you remember when the German goons tried to take Marion and they ended up getting her in the basket. And that had it was a set with like a couple of vendor stands and some plastic stuff. And it came with an exclusive Monkey Man figure. That's what they called him, Monkey Man. And he, of course, had the monkey that ratted out Marion and then later ate the poison dates and died. And there was also a Well of Souls playset, which was the biggest one they had. Basically it came with like lines where you could have Indy go down into the well with Sala, and they had an actual little arc in there, which was movie accurate. And, of course, a ton of little plastic snakes you could put all over the floor. And even a breakaway wall with a mummy. So, you didn't quite get the whole, chamber of horrors that Marion found herself in, but close enough.
You got snakes in a mummy. I mean, how much more can you ask for as a kid?
Well, you also got torches, and it was a pretty big set. The only other major sets from that line weren't even really sets. So one was the truck that Indy chased down and hijacked. And the other one was the horse he used to, go after the truck with. And the action figure line itself was small, maybe about 16 figures total. And I know by 83 they were already on clearance. They did not sell anywhere near as well as the Star Wars stuff did. But at one point, I had almost every single one of them. I was missing 2 figures and the horse. I could never find Marion anywhere. And I missed out on my chance to get the mail away Belloc with the ceremonial ropes from the end of the movie. Though interestingly enough, I got one of those a couple years back at a much cheaper price than I was expecting, because those with the everything with them can go up into the hundreds.
Yeah.
I think I got mine for like $40.
Dang.
Yeah, I know. I was pretty impressed. But yeah, so, and unfortunately, as time went on, those figures also became scattered to the winds mostly. Except for my Indy. I held on to him. And back before Dial of Destiny came out, Hasbro started doing a retro line of Indiana Jones figures modeled after the original 82 ones. And they basically re-released 5 figures from the original line, but added 5 new ones, too, from the later movies. There was Indy and Shorty from Temple of Doom, and Henry, trying to say Henry here. Henry, Sala, and Indy from Last Crusade. So I got a little miniature Sean Connery.
That's awesome.
And that's all they ever did for that retro line. They never bothered with Crystal Skull or Dial of Destiny. And they did do some figures based on those, but they were all this larger size, like the Black Series for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And those were like $20 a piece, so I didn't bother to collect those. But it was a fun line while it lasted. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
So, which is why I have Indy as my avatar. So, Prime. Now, I don't think it would be wrong to assume that you and I are the biggest Joe fans here.
Probably.
So, like we were saying earlier, we both got into it pretty much kind of the same way.
Yeah, before the ad blitz hit.
Mm-hmm. And I just remember going back to that Benny's every other week or so and, see new ones. And, my parents were just like, okay, these are pretty cheap, so sure. And got quite a little collection after a while there. I know I had Flash, Stalker, Snake Eyes. I think my brother got Scarlet. And
Nice.
eventually got Cobra Commander. And then when they started coming out with new ones like Tripwire and Torpedo, and by that point we were both hooked. And yeah, I made it my point to build the entire Cobra hierarchy as much as I could. In fact, the only ones I was missing from that were the Baroness and Major Blood. So how about you, Prime? What was your, when you were collecting them, did you have any specific goals like that, or?
I was pretty much trying to get everybody I could get. That's the best way to put it, because like I said earlier, I got hooked because they even if you didn't know anything about the stuff at all before the ad blitz, they were just incredibly nice looking figures with a lot of articulation to them. When I started out, I got the first 2 I got in the same I'm almost sure we went to Hills and I was able to get Breaker and Short Fuse. That's a communications expert and the mortar round guy. And at first they were basically Boba Fett's henchmen, gophers and stuff. Because most of what I had was Star Wars. And then as I got more of the figures, let me see. I think I either got Snake Eyes and Stalker next, or it was the other way around. I think it's Snake Eyes, and then I found Stalker. One of the things was, at first, you really didn't see everybody in that first wave. It was, I think you saw maybe half of them.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, I only had those few characters, and I'm trying to think what else. It was probably Grand Slam, the version with the jetpack, maybe. I'm not sure. But had maybe half of it, and then all of a sudden the other half started popping up. And one time we were at Kmart with my grandmother, and she just got me like maybe three or four of them. And I remember specifically it was Flash, Zap, and Scarlet. And then after that, the rest of it just kind of fell into place. And then the Cobra started popping up because at first, like we said before, there were no Cobra figures for them to fight at first.
Yeah.
And then even when you looked on the back of the packaging, there were no. You had the little square, not square. You had the rectangle painted art of the figures on the back, and then the file card. There were no Cobras on the original back of it at all. But then later on, that started trickling in and said, "Oh, okay, they are going to make Cobra figures." 'Cause I think by that point, I had seen the comic and was wondering when they were going to do Cobra figures, and it's like, "Oh, okay, they're doing that now."
You
But
know, I was going to say
okay,
regarding that, weren't there only three at the beginning? It was just a Cobra Trooper, a Cobra Officer, and Cobra Commander?
yep. And then later, a little bit later on, it was the mail away offer for the hooded Cobra Commander.
Oh, yes. I ended up getting one of those.
Me too. And the crazy thing about it was, I don't remember, I don't know if you ended up getting any of the later offers, but after doing that, we got offers in the mail for the future mail-in offers. They were not even from the package. It was just Hasbro would send them to you.
Yeah.
And the first one I remember, everybody thinks Destro came before Major Blood, but I got the mail-in thing for Major Blood first. And that's why my memory of Major Blood is so strong, because it was like, holy crap, there's going to be more Cobras?
Huh.
Because like you said, back then there were only three, and you had and the one that was the same guy. But slowly but surely they started doing the mail. It was Major Blood, it was Duke. I think there was an offer for that this water surfing thing, the Manta, I think it was called.
You might be right
The
about that.
Because I don't think that was even in stores. I think that was just a mail-in only thing. And
Huh.
then later on there was an offer for Duke. And I already talked about the situation with Duke, with him not really starting off in GI Joe.
Yeah.
But when it was during, I think it was when the second series of figures started popping up, like you said, Tripwire, Gung Ho, Doc, Torpedo, basically a lot of the specialists, the original specialists,
Mm-hmm.
where they were for different environments. When those guys started showing up, I think that's when they put out an offer for Duke, and I was like, hey, he kind of looks like Hawk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like oh,
I
go ahead.
do remember seeing the mail-in offer for Duke, but we never did it.
I can't remember if that's how I got Duke or not. What happened before that even popped up, I lost my Hawk figure at a friend's house
Oh.
and in his yard. And since he came with the missile launcher, couldn't just go to the store and get another missile launcher just to get Hawk again.
Yeah.
So when I got Duke, he wasn't in any cartoons or anything like that. So I just pretended he was Hawk for a long time. That's why it kind of cracked me up when I saw those like decades later, I see the storyboards for the mass device, and instead of Duke's name at the bottom saying lines, it says Hawk. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, maybe they planned for it to be Hawk or something weird like that.
Yeah, it could be.
Because there's rumors of that, and there's rumors that go around of CoverGirl they said she was going to be another version of Scarlet, and I'm not sure how true that one is.
Yeah, that
But
one I never
that
heard. So,
yeah, and I think people just say that because she's almost got the same head as Scarlet, the same, like, her hair has more brown in it than Scarlet's, but it's really, that original figure is really reddish.
yeah, I remember that one. I had a couple of friends who were pretty heavy into GI Joe as well, and they ended up getting some of the figures I didn't. So CoverGirl being one of them.
Yeah, I had. In fact, she she fell apart, but I still got the parts to my original CoverGirl figure. I don't have a lot of the parts to my original figures, but I've got her and uh oh, and Grunt. Basically the most basic Green Army man of the GI Joe line at that time.
Yeah, he was. But speaking of figures falling apart, I know one of the experiences I had was that this kind of thing would happen from time to time. You know, an arm would snap off, or the rubber band would snap. Especially on those earlier Joes that didn't have the swivel arm battle grip. You know, they just seemed to be a little more fragile in the arm department.
Yeah, and the broken thumbs, that was a
Yeah.
big problem because some of the weapons they actually made a second version of the weapons because it was, I think, stuff like Zap's bazooka and other stuff like that. They were breaking their thumbs
Ooh.
when you put 'em- when you put the weapon in there for too many times.
Yeah, I
So
remember
they
that.
worked they worked on it.
Well, I remember my brother and I, we took the broken figures we had, and we had a small cement block with a rock on top of it. And we took these figures, put them in the cement block, put the rock back, and we're like, all right, that's the G.I. Joe graveyard. And then one day, I got a bright idea. I was like, hey, have you ever noticed where the backpacks go? There's like a little screw down there. And went hunting in my dad's toolbox to go ahead and find a screwdriver that would fit. Because, like, maybe we could take these apart. So we found one. And sure enough, they came apart. And once we puzzled out how they got put back together, it's like, let's bring our figures back to life. We went over, raided the G.I. Joe graveyard, took all the broken figures out, and just started constructing new ones out of them. Which was cool.
Making you the original Dr.
That's fun.
Mindbender.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, that enabled us to go ahead and give them new backstories. We had all new characters and stuff. It was pretty fun, actually.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's how they got their inspiration for some of their newer toys.
Yeah,
I
they
think
probably
that was
kit
a lot of
bashed a few.
I think that was
Yeah.
a lot of our like first customs when we figured out, hey, we can take these things apart and switch the parts on them.
Right.
Yeah. I know I had, at one point, I made this Cobra villain who had like a Crimson Guard torso, one arm. His legs were more like standard military gear, but his other arm was a bat arm.
Whoa, yeah.
So I came up with
Nice.
this story with a friend of mine that one of the Joes he'd made out of some of his broken ones, because of course, you know, I had to spread this around. He created a character he named Switchblade, who was like an expert swordsman. And it's like, well, this guy here has got to be his nemesis. That's how he lost his arm. That's why he's got this robot arm now.
Nice.
So yeah, that was fun. I don't think I had any of those
Who-
figures left though when I sold mine.
I do have a question on this note. I know in modern era, it's really easy to come across the right O-rings to repair the G.I. Joe legs and torsos. But what did you use at the time? Did you just use like a rubber band and twist it, or did you actually figure out the size of rubber O-ring you needed?
Well, I actually salvaged any, like, for example, like a Joe with a broken arm, but the legs hadn't broken off. And I would
Oh.
just dismantle him and take his O-ring.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. Tried to reuse as many parts as possible. I tried the rubber band thing once. It didn't quite work.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I even got around to trying that because whatever few that ended up breaking that badly, I just used. I never had to need any more O rings for them. It was just whatever was there was there.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, later on, there was when GI Joes came back. I'm trying to think, somewhere in the mid '90s or the late '90s, there was a 2-pack with a Cobra Viper and a guy named Mirage, who was a later GI Joe figure, and he was kind of tall and weird looking. I think he was maybe for Mega Marines or something like that. But I found this out talking on the Joe boards, because I had so many of those and I didn't really care about the character. I take him apart and use his O-rings for to fix other figures that I had by that point. Because it was the '90s. By then, I had stuff that did like falling apart.
Yeah.
And I found out later on that's what everybody else was doing, because they were army building the Cobra Vipers, because everybody was so happy to have Cobra Vipers in stores again. And they said, this time we're going to build an army, not crazy like the people who were trying to do the Imperial shuttle landing and the Death Star level of stuff. Not that,
Oh, boy.
just have like a little crew of them around. And I got into that habit just from, like we said, there were only 3 Cobras, and in my head, the bad guys always outnumbered the good guys. So that's when our army built GI Joes, the Cobras at least.
Speaking of the original 3 Cobras, I remembered something else. I'd gotten the Cobra Officer sometime in '83, '84, something like that. And right around the time, it must have been during summer vacation or something like that. And it was basically using the living room as this, whole giant battlefield. So I ended up taking the Cobra Officer and putting him in a sniper position up on one of the shelves my parents had, where he was actually in something. He must have fallen back or something like that, because after I was done, I'm cleaning up and looking for my Cobra Officer. I couldn't find him. It's like, where did he go? He wouldn't just get up and walk away. So I never found him. Years pass. We're getting ready to move down to Florida in '89. And my mother's packing up stuff from this top shelf. And she pulls something down and she's like, Robert, come here for a minute. So I go over there. It's like, does this belong to you? And there was my Cobra Officer with a layer of dust on him.
Camouflage.
No one had looked in there in like 6 years.
Wow.
So I took him and cleaned him off and put him in with my collection that I still had. It's like, all right.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and
Whenever
camouflaged
we
him.
expect it.
Yeah, he camouflaged himself a bit too well.
yeah, I'll say.
He did his job well. Very well.
Yep.
Too well.
It's like the time I lost Dr. Mindbender. Except him I found pretty quickly. He was actually in my jean pockets.
Yo,
Yeah.
Where is he? Oh, there's in the pants. Okay.
Well, no, I'd already
Dr.
taken him off and put him in the dirty clothes. So, but I was able to get him before he got washed.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's lucky, because that could have been a bad situation.
Yeah. But G.I. Joe was what incident, Sharon? You mean the Cobra Officer or Dr. Mindbender? I wouldn't expect you to remember either. But the whole thing about G.I. Joes is that they were relatively inexpensive. The vehicles weren't too bad, and at Christmas, I know we usually get a couple of big vehicles. I know one year I got the G.I. Joe Whale, the hovercraft.
Yeah, that was fun. That was crazy fun.
Yeah. And, well, why would you remember that? You weren't there, Sharon. I mean, you were around, but you weren't there at the time. And I know for another Christmas, my brother and I each got matching Cobra, what are those kind of boats called? The ones that, hydrofoils.
Okay, those are cool. It's funny, they have a code name, but I hear them called the hydrofoil more than the code name.
Are they like called the morays or moray eels or something like that?
That's what I think. I think they were called the mores. The thing that throws me off is later on they in the late no, it was the either late 90s or early 2000s. I think it was early 2000s. They brought GI Joe back, and instead of the underwater Cobra guys being called eels, they were called mores, and that always throws me off.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Huh.
Now, there was one thing that every kid who collected G.I. Joe wanted, and most of us never got. I would think you would know what this one is, Prime.
Yeah, I can pretty much guess it was the USS Flag.
That's the one. I actually knew a guy who had it. He went to my church, and he invited me. I used to go over to his house after church on Sundays from time to time. And I remember walking into his basement rec room and just seeing this aircraft carrier. Well, part of it anyway. The other half was dismantled. I'm like, you have the flag? He's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like, okay, you've had a Sky Striker and what was that Cobra ship that was like a SR-71?
Oh, the Night Raven.
Yeah, Night Raven. He had the Night Raven, and he had the freaking flag. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd ended up getting the Defiant at some point. But
both of those things were monsters. I didn't see them until I was an adult.
Well, I remember seeing these things in Toys R Us, but never actually got my hands on. Well, to this day, I've still never actually touched a Defiant, but the flag, we had some fun with that day. Now, I mainly got the smaller planes. I think the biggest one I had was the Cobra Rattler.
I had the Sky Striker, and I think the biggest Cobra vehicle I had was probably the Night Raven.
Oh, you had the Night Raven too?
Yeah.
And the Sky Striker?
Yep.
Lucky. Always.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff I didn't have, so I'd pass it up to get GI Joe stuff, basically.
Yeah, that's understandable. But no, I had the Cobra Rattler, which is just an A10 Warthog, and I actually got that. We were on a trip to attend a cousin's wedding one year in Washington, and I guess my brother and I had both been very good on that trip because my parents bought us each a Cobra Rattler.
Well, that's really cool because then you could do the side-by-side swooshing with the vehicles.
Oh, yeah. Now, I mean, like I said, they would buy us the larger ones for Christmas. This goes back to Star Wars. In fact, I remember of course, obviously, I had the Millennium Falcon, X-Wings, TIE Fighters, and for 1 year, shortly before the toy line ended, I ended up getting a B-Wing fighter. That thing was massive. It's like,
I don't think I ever even saw that outside the box.
Well, it was cool because the cockpit was weighted so that no matter which way you turned it, it would always stay upright. So that was really cool. I know I had Boba Fett's Slave 1 at one point, and of course Snow Speeders, a couple of the different Hoth play sets, but without a doubt the coolest thing I ever got, aside from the Millennium Falcon, was the Imperial Shuttle.
Oh,
wow.
Didn't have that.
That was a monster.
Same here. I didn't have that.
I think that was my parents' way of saying, we're sorry we never got you the AT-AT.
Here's another prize.
Accepted.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, apology accepted. And what was cool was it was 84 when I got that. And at the same time, I also got Zartan.
Oh, nice.
That's amazing.
So you can imagine all the hijinks that ensued when Zartans tried to steal the Imperial Shuttle.
Speaking of crossovers.
Yeah, well, he fit right in there.
Yeah, they were.
For sure.
Those two lines were great for mixing together, especially when Star Wars had the little, I think they were called mini rigs, the little vehicles that weren't really in anything.
Mm-hmm.
I loved using those for G.I. Joe too,
So
I mean, they same size, they fit.
well, I had those,
Yep.
G.I. Joe, Star Wars, and I mixed in Indiana Jones with it. And on top of that, I was starting to get Transformers and Masters of the Universe too. So in the book Eating Candy in Outer Space, I actually wrote a little kind of fictionalized version of what a typical play session would be for me in my imagination with all these action figures. So if anyone's read that, they'd remember this.
It's crazy how many of us are the original stories that we came up with were probably playing around with figures
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
mixing the toy lines.
Mm-hmm.
The original fanfics that were in your living room.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
Oh, and
Here's a funny question. Oh, go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead.
Okay, I was about to ask, does anyone have any characters that they mess around with now that they made up while they were playing with toys? Like, and just making new characters out of them.
Yes, but I forget their name. I've had at least 2 or 3 sets of original characters that I've lost either because I stopped, thinking about them or writing about them. So absolutely, I had some characters. Their DNA might still be around in some of the newer, storylines I have, but otherwise, sadly, no, I've lost most of those to the sands of time.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've got a few inspirations from my early experience with toys that I've incorporated into the story series that I'm still working on. And some of that also comes from the TV shows based on them, too. So I'm not going to go into detail as to what those are, but I thought they turned out well. Now I just hope everyone else can get to read them.
So we got our fingers crossed we'll get to see the saga come out.
Yeah. Me too. Hopefully before I kick the bucket. Oh, boy. But, on the flip side of G.I. Joe, we had Transformers. I know there's some people here who want to talk about Transformers.
Yes, that was one of my jams, as they say.
So, okay. So, who started in 84?
Yeah, I did.
I cannot say that I actually started in 85. My first Transformer was one of the those dudes you could pull them back, and when they started going after a couple seconds, they'd flip and land on their feet.
I think they were called throttle bots.
Yeah, throttle bots. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was 2 of them. There was like top spin,
top spin and twin twist, I think.
And I'm pretty sure top spin was the first one I had. And that just kind of ballooned for me. I remember getting Optimus Prime for Christmas and just going, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. And, eventually getting stuff like Soundwave and, who the else did I have? Blaster, that was another one. Made it a point to collect. I made it a point to collect all the tapes for both of those, even up to the bitter end.
Where they had there was I think a gorilla and a condor that combined into a single humanoid robot.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep, I had. Those were probably the last Transformers I ever got. Well, until many, many, many years later. Yes. Sharon, your favorite Transformer is Bumblebee. I do know.
That's my sister's favorite, too.
Huh. Well, there you go.
That was my favorite at the time, but I probably changed it around here and there because every time you get a new toy or new characters in the series, it's like, oh, that's going to be my new favorite character because that was so cool, That happens a lot with Transformers. And same thing with G.I. Joe at the same time. The amount of characters both series had, holy crap. But they had to keep up with their toys, right? So.
Hey, with G.I. Joe, I think my favorite characters will probably always be Shipwreck and Airtight.
Shipwreck was a riot.
Oh, yeah. But Airtight, he was just unusual. And I liked that. But, yeah, as far as the Transformers went, I was basically a Prime guy from day one. At least once I had him.
Yeah, same here, not surprisingly.
Yep.
In fact,
that's where That's where my alias comes from.
Yeah. In fact, my Prime got played with so much that eventually his legs wouldn't even come out and stay there because the parts holding in place have been ground down.
Yes, the floppy limb syndrome.
And then he started to fall apart. And then he was in such bad shape that I ended up just detaching his head and keeping that. And then I got that, what was it, Power Master Optimus Prime?
Yep, I remember that.
Which was one of the last Transformers I got. Just because I had to have a new Prime. And I see Mike has a soft spot for Wheeljack, and Shipwreck is his favorite Joe. Well, good on you, Mike.
Yeah, Wheeljack was like the mad scientist of the Autobots, so I don't blame you for liking him a lot. And I still do not have a Wheeljack. I had to think for a second, like, did I ever get a Wheeljack? And was never able to. I don't even have any of the modern ones yet.
Yeah, I never had him either. But I know the one I always wanted that I actually had in my possession for a little while, but I had to give it back, was Megatron.
He was tough to get.
Yeah, that was kind of a even in the late 80s. I remember, I think there were kids talking about that Megatron figure as if it was legend.
Yeah, and a friend of mine had given me his Megatron, and it was all there. Only problem is one of the arms was broken, so it kept falling off. And I was like, I don't care, I got Megatron. But I think his parents demanded that he get it back. So I had to give it back. And there went my only Megatron.
Soundwave was a better robot, though.
Admittedly, yes, he was.
It's like, I think Megatron's probably one of the last original. I don't have all the original Decepticons. I know I never had Thundercracker, the original one, but Megatron was the one that took the longest to get. I think I got him probably after I started getting the Wave 2 stuff.
Oh, wow.
And it's like when I got him, I was like, I finally got Megatron, but he wasn't as cool as Soundwave as far as in robot mode. The gun was cool as heck.
Yeah.
But in robot mode, Soundwave wins that easily.
Mm-hmm. As far as the Decepticon jets, I know I always wanted Starscream, but I never had him. And I never had Thundercracker either. I did have Skywarp.
That was my first jet.
Skywarp?
Yep.
Nice.
Got Skywarp first because again, this was before any of the ad blitz. Well, no, I think the ads may have been out, but I didn't see anything like a cartoon or a comic book or anything at this point. I just got the one that looked the coolest. He just had the coolest looking color scheme to him. So I got him, and then later on, I think maybe even after the started, I got or the miniseries or whatever, I got Starscream, but never had the Thundercracker in that classic form.
Well, trying to think of who else I had. I know my memory is bad, but it's not this bad. My brother had all the Constructicons.
Oh, nice.
So he actually
I never got to finish them.
He actually had Devastator built.
Nice.
And I think he collected some of the other ones too. Me, I just kept going with, I'd find something I like. It's like, okay, I'm going to get that. I wasn't really into the whole combiner thing. I did get it.
I thought they were cool.
I think they were cool. I did have a couple of them later on, but not enough to form a combiner robot. I know I also...
They were starting to get a little crazy after a while with the combiners.
Yeah, they made so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he also had all the aerial bots at one point, too.
Oh, nice.
That's one set that I had. Ended up getting that for my birthday one year. It was the actual set in the one box. It came from, I can't remember I think it was Children's Palace. It was in the it was in a strip mall that's still around in this area. it was just weird that there was a toy store in there at one point, because it's a place where usually, you'd go there and you'd see like a grocery store and maybe a few clothing stores and stuff like that, but they had a toy store there for a while. And that's the specific thing I remember getting out of that store.
Did they come in
Because I mean, how do that's kind of hard to forget.
were they in like a box set or something?
Yeah, it was a box setup.
Oh, nice. I remember seeing the Constructicon box set from time to time.
Yeah,
But
that's the main one I remember seeing in stores, but wasn't able to get them all separately. I had four of them.
So you were
So
close to Devastator.
yeah, close but no cigar.
But that what you said there about the strip mall, that kind of brings to mind something else. Toy stores in general. I mean, yeah, obviously, Toys R Us was the big one, but for the longest time, they didn't actually have a Toys R Us in my area, and it was a lot of smaller places that we had to get toys at. Like, okay, I mentioned that Benny's earlier, but there was also right up the road from Benny's, there was in a plaza, there was a small toy store called Lee's Toys. They carried a lot of model making stuff, but as the 80s went on, they started to carry more and more actual toys. I mean, I remember walking in there and seeing the amount of Star Wars stuff they had at one point. It was just crazy. And then that later transitioned into G.I. Joe and Transformers. And I think that's actually where I got my Power Master Optimus Prime. Place is still in business, too.
Oh, that's
wow.
really cool then.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And
Very lucky, because
yeah.
so many of those places, they just disappeared.
Mm-hmm. And as my sister just pointed out, Child World was another one. Now, the closest Child World to us was up in Massachusetts. So whenever we went to visit my grandparents, we usually stopped there on the way back. That's where I got my Indiana Jones. And I also picked up a few Atari 2600 games there, as long as I'm on the subject of Child World. And,
There we go.
It got to be on brand.
hey,
Oh, of course.
it's me we're talking about here. I remember getting Ghostbusters there.
Yeah, it's possible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, except that the 2600 game didn't have that voice clip. But
I felt like I needed to throw that in there somehow, but yeah, it's not. It's already yes on that one, but anyway.
well, and of course, once the big mall in our area opened up, which was the Crystal Mall down in Waterford, you got some toy stores in there, like KB Toys. And a lot of good stuff there in the mid 80s. And eventually, they opened up a Toys R Us. And that was just kind of the end right there.
About what year was that?
When did they open that Toys R Us? I think they opened it up in 86, about a year or two after the mall opened up. Last time I was up there, it's a medical place now.
Oh,
Wow.
The reason why I asked that was because as you were saying it was like a similar story with me, where most of my toys came from one of three places: Kmart, Hill's Department Store, or Murphy's Mart. And every once in a while, maybe we would go to a toy store like the one I said in the strip mall.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place called Best Department Store that seemed it was more upscale place, including the prices. But every once in a while, you could find some stuff you couldn't find anywhere else. And, every once in a while, rarely get something from there. But we didn't get a Toys R Us until around, it was definitely the late 80s. Or like mid or late 80s. And I'm thinking it was around 86. I kind of wonder if they had if they were doing regional pushes around that.
That could be. I just know that the Crystal Mall had been open up for about 2 years. And we would go there pretty often, actually. It's like my mother liked to shop at JCPenney's. We'd always hit KB and they had it was almost a magazine kind of stand next door, except it was a store. And They also had a ton of comic books in there. My brother was collecting those. And there was all sorts of other little places in there. But, once the Toys R Us opened up, when we go out, we'd hit the Crystal Mall first and then go to Toys R Us. So, win-win. But how about you guys? Jay, Snarb, you haven't said much.
I was about to chime in, but go ahead, Snarb. I'll do it for it.
Well, I don't have a lot of memories of like the early to mid 80s. Most of mine are late. But when I was growing up, my dad was stationed in Tucson, and there's a couple of Toys R Us's there, at least one, as well as a KB's. I don't remember going to KB's very much. I've never really been impressed by their toy selection, even when I would occasionally go there in the 90s. We would go to Tucson every so often. We live about an hour away. And it was nice having a Toys R Us as a kid, and then having that taken from me. I was like, oh, but we did have a Walmart and a Kmart and eventually a Target. So most of my toy buying experiences were department stores. And you would usually, there were only some lines you could only get Toys R Us, or you'd have to hit a Toys R Us to get. And that would be something very nice we would do a nice little thing we would do every so often is like maybe, once a month or, in the summer months, when we were out of school, we would go up to Tucson and get, to check out the Toys R Us. And it was always nice seeing what you couldn't get. That was kind of a barrier for me collecting stuff, is that, again, some lines, like especially some of the Toy Biz stuff, the early Toy Biz stuff, was almost exclusively the Toys R Us for whatever reason. We just didn't get them as much in the Walmart or the Kmart, and then by the time I think Target opened, that was about when you'd start seeing them in most stores. Trying to think what else about. Okay, if we're talking about Transformers, again, a lot of my early memories were hand-me-downs. The only new one I can remember getting for a long time was the Snap Trap. But I did have a Pretender bludgeon shell. That was very fun because it's like, what the hell is this? And then later on, it's like, oh, it's a Transformer. That's kind of cool. And obviously, again, as noted, the Micro Masters or whatever, the little mini ones, and then the Action Masters, those were my bread and butter. But I don't remember where I got a lot of those. My parents would usually get them as Christmas or birthday gifts. So your guess is as good as mine there in terms of, 80s Transformers. I don't know where I got a lot of my G2 figures, because I had Optimus Prime. I had I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this. I had the Fire Truck. They redid him. Yes, that was one of my favorites. I actually liked him a little bit more than Optimus. And I'm a big Optimus fan, so that's saying something. Later, I would get the G2 Megatron for Christmas. That thing was amazing, and I think it was at about the era where they, that safety standards were changing. If I recall, he had a missile launcher of some kind, and it had a hopper, and you could feed a bunch of like these tiny missiles and then launch them out really quick. And well, you can't do that anymore. And even in the 90s, you couldn't do that at some point. But he was so cool. He was surprisingly posable for a figure of that era. Like G2 was just starting to experiment with the ball joints that would become standard with Beast Wars. Most of my Transformers experience is Beast Wars, but I can go into that one later because it's almost a completely different line. It's kind of a Hail Mary after G2 was like starting to fizzle out. I think my absolute favorite G2 figure, though, was Dreadwing. He came with a smaller partner, and it was like he also had this big missile launcher, but it was a little bit safer. The missiles were a little bit longer, and you would put them into this like minigun almost thing, and then you could, I don't know if you turned it or did something, and they would all shoot out one after another really rapidly. It's just a really great figure. And I'm trying to think how to summarize this thought, about Transformers. The thing I've always really liked about them is that they're a great intersection between a toy, but also a nice collector's item. Even at the time, Dreadwing is like, he's a great figure. He's got all these nice play features. It turns from a vehicle to a robot, so it's like 3 toys in one. You got the vehicle, the robot, the puzzle. But if you just wanted to sit it in your shelf or something like that, which is what I would later do with a lot of my Transformers, even the ones that aren't that posable, they look really good standing there. You can't say that for every single toy line that's out there, especially some of the older ones. Like some of them just aren't good shelf pieces for whatever reason.
But
That's true.
Snarb, when you brought up Walmart and Target and whatnot, that just reminded me. Where I was growing up, none of that existed. It's like there was no
Yes, I
Walmart.
understand it. That was, yeah, Walmart was kind of showing up everywhere in the late 80s, as I
Yeah,
understand it. That was a new building, I think, in the town we moved into when I was growing up. So I
yeah.
remember it. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said we didn't even have a Kmart.
Wow.
Wow.
What we had was a Zayres,
Oh, I've heard of that one.
which was
Yeah, I've
originally,
heard of that too.
if I remember correctly, originally it was a Caldors, and then it was changed to Zayres, and then eventually ended up as an Ames, and now it's a medical facility.
Yeah, that seems to be where a lot of things are heading is medical.
Yeah,
Or-
That's what happened to our when I mentioned the big three in our area. It was Hills and Hills Department Store. Around Christmas, they had an advertisement where they were saying Hills is where the toys are,
huh.
and the hook was Hills. You know how some stores they would kind of pull back on toys during the rest of the year. Hills never did that. They would just go full speed all through the year. But anyway, it was Hills, Kmart, and the third was Murphy's Mart. And so, at some point in the late 80s, they got bought out by Ames, and all of them got replaced by that, except for one where the building just got torn down.
Ah,
But I remember reading, and they said it seemed like Ames went on a buying spree like in the late 80s.
uh-huh.
So I wonder how many people's favorite toy stores got bought by them, even though they did continue to they didn't stop selling toys. They were pretty good about it.
Yeah. But I just remember going to the Zayres, formerly Caldors, later Ames, at all three times, and getting toys there of different varieties. And for that matter, they always had a couple arcade games out in the lobby, or whatever you want to call it. The one I remember in particular was Pole Position.
Oh, nice.
Pretty sure it was the stand up, not the sit down. But hey, it's like, wow, this thing's got a real steering wheel on it. Cool. But there was also, before we had our own mall, we used to go out to Meriden, Connecticut, to the mall there. And that was where I actually ended up seeing a lot of the Star Wars stuff for the first time. I remember seeing row after row of Han Solo in his Bespin outfit. And it was cool because we'd also got an Atari 2600 and they had a display there. That's where my mom got her favorite game, Carnival.
Oh,
The stuff's all kind of intertwined, so. Two guys in the New London Mall. That I don't actually remember, Sharon. Hey, Eris. How you doing?
hires.
Hey, Eris. Okay, I hate to interject, but I suddenly got this vivid memory. Did anyone ever go to a toy store or just remember how old department stores were? And sometimes you just have stuff sitting on like almost industrial shelving. It wasn't even like a fancy like sort of thing. Like I remember the Toys R Us sometimes would have toys on what was just standard shelving, like you'd almost see in a hardware store, because they were this big department store with toys in it. Or you'd have this very basic sort of like, I don't know how to describe the way a store is set up, but I'm curious if anyone else remembers the way those stores used to be laid out, how sometimes it was just really haphazard or even just like, yep, this is a toy store. Here's all our toys. They're out on industrial shelving.
I actually do.
I know.
Go ahead,
Go
Brian.
ahead. Oh, I was about to say there was a store. I don't remember what the name was, but we would go there every once in a while. They would have a toy section with the regular stuff in it, but then there was like some weird offshoot toy section at a completely different part of the store where the weird stuff was. That's where you see stuff like Power Lords. They were kind of sci-fi. They were kind of sci-fi characters that transformed into other characters,
Yes.
like humanoid
I knew a kid
characters.
that had one of those.
And they recently started working on bringing those back, but that was one of the few places I actually saw those, and it was weird. It was like it wasn't the regular toy section, but all of this weird, almost other dimensional stuff was there, stuff that I didn't even know or see anywhere else. And it, like you said,
Yes.
it was not set up like a toy section. It was it as a kid, I couldn't really figure it out. It was just weird.
Well, I seem to remember seeing something like that. 'Cause my parents used to like to go to Montgomery Ward, and they had a pretty big toy section. But sometimes a lot of it was just set out on these kind of stuff the Snarboo was driving.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I had another memory. Our when we were stationed on Davis Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, you'd go to the BX or PX. Later, we would go to the Fort Huachuca PX, and you'd have a department store area. It was like they had all these sort of different things, and it was like a big department store. It'd have like or a mall. It would have like a not a cafeteria. For some reason, my brain's wanting to confuse words. It'd have a food court, and then it would have like a department store with clothing and other stuff. And I just remember vividly the toy section being really weird. It was like in the back of like the clothing store, and you'd go back there, and then everything was just loose on these shelves, and it was just you could usually find something good there, obviously, but it was just so interesting compared to the rest of the store because they also had a really nice electronics section, and we're talking like I forget why we were there, but I just remember one year I was there and they had these really new computers at the time, and they were all running like Duke Nukem 3D or something like that. And it was really nice compared to the toy section. It was such a sort of a weird shock. It's like, yep, nice clothing store. We're getting some shoes. Hey, you want some toys? Sure. You go into like the scary toy dungeon to get get whatever you wanted.
I remember stuff like that in Sears too, where there would be just like a little toy section somewhere in the back of the store. And when you walked
Yes.
in, it would end up being actually rather big. But Jay, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I'll just talk about like where we got our toys and things like that. We never got a toy for us here. We never got those big places. My store would have been Woco before it became Walmart, and People's. They had a little thing there, Hearts to store, and so like where we could find toys, it was like a needle in a haystack. But
Cool.
once we did, it was like we would go there all the time to make sure we can get a new toy or something like that. It was interesting to go to like Woco is like not here anymore because Walmart did take over. And so we're like, oh, there's an electronics section and toys now. This is even bigger. And it was because I live in a smaller town. So my mom would take us to another town, Ottawa, which is a lot bigger. We go to the mall and I try to get toys there. And she would get me, what is it, Silverhawk from there and little toys like that. Yeah. Those are a lot of like you guys are talking about where you were buying it and getting it and memories from that. Just brought those kind of memories where I used to get the toys in my town. And the mall changed here big time. At first, it was like this L-shaped mall where you had Local and Walmart. Hearts was a different type of store. Very little toys, but there was something there. We did have a Kmart for a little bit. That disappeared. And then we had Zellers. That was another store we had for a while. It was a hunt. I go everywhere to find a toy wherever I can. And especially if it's a Transformers, I would get that. My earliest toys in that line would have been like, Optimus. Can't go wrong with that. I had Hot Rod. I'm one of those fans of the Hot Rod from the movie, even though that kind of traumatized me when I went to go see it because I saw it alone. But anyway, that's a whole different story. Yeah, I remember
Not to laugh
that.
at your pain.
No, it's all good. My parents are like, "Hey, we'll drop you off at the theaters. We'll come and pick you up after an hour and a half." And then I loved the movie up till what happened to Optimus, and then I'm like, "Oh, what's going to happen next?" Oh my childhood.
Yeah, that movie is a ride.
Yes, it is.
Holy crap! But I did like Hot Rod throughout the film, and I definitely got him. I got his Rodimus Prime form as well. And then I even got the triple changers, like Astro Train and whatnot, and they were fun to have. Um, I'm trying to remember the one Transformer. Oh, I had so much trouble transforming it because it was complicated. It's one of the bigger ones. I think it was one of the jets, but I cannot remember what the name it is. But
it wasn't Jetfire or Skyfire, was it?
I think it was Skyfire. Pretty sure. It was a more complicated jet that I was having trouble with, and I just once I got it, I never transformed them back. But
Yeah, I find it actually kind of funny regarding Jetfire that the toy they released was actually a repainted Veritech.
Yes.
Oh, right. That's right.
That was a legendary figure because it came like I remember my babysitter. She had a bunch of she had a toy bins, and that was one of the toys in there. And I was like, why is this so much more posable than the rest of the line? This is so detailed and I think some kids were telling me it came with a bunch of accessories or something too, and it was just wild. That how Wild West the Transformers toy line was up to a certain point.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah, like you said, they had the barely posable bricks, and then all of a sudden you had this thing that was almost like like those artist marionettes that you could pose and paint.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having a live model. I mean, Jetfire was just so insanely posable.
Yeah. I never had him as a kid. I somehow managed to get a hold of one sometime in the mid-90s for some reason. And I think I ended up giving it to my brother. But I was going to say, though, Jay, you're not alone in being a Hot Rod fan. I had actually wanted Hot Rod in the worst way as a toy, but my parents could never find him. I ended up getting Rodimus Prime for my birthday one year. And then...
Oh, nice.
I think Christmas of 87 or so. Because I was still into it. And I specifically asked my parents, I really want to get Hot Rod if you can find him. And my brother had gone with him shopping one day, and when I got home, he's like, yeah, they found Hot Rod. I'm like, awesome. And then, of course, Christmas Day gets here, and no sign of Hot Rod. So I figured my brother was just jerking my chain. Yeah. Well, here's the thing about that. I did get the other thing I wanted the most, which was a copy of Mega Mania for the 2600. But at one point after we were all done, my dad calls me out of the living room and he's like, Robert, found something here with your name on it. Yeah, it was Hot Rod.
Nice.
And I had him up until the Great Crash, and then it was gone. So that's one of the only ones I've actually replaced. I found a deal on eBay a year or two back for a Hot Rod with Transformers and movie colors. Picked him up.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
for the stuff that was the movie line. I think Hot Rod was probably my favorite out of all the ones that I saw, and I definitely made sure I had that one, despite what happened in the movie.
Yeah, I mean the original one I had was the Target Master Hot Rod, but I'm not too concerned about reduplicating that completely. Besides, the only other Transformer I own is Gigawatt.
Yeah. But when it comes to that movie there, not to be off on a weird tangent, but after getting past that whole what happened to Optimus and the other characters for the G1, I watch that movie almost every year now. I love the movie so much. I can copy it word for word how much I love that film. And I think Rodimus Prime did not get that fair shake in the series due to the fan backlash.
Yeah.
The fact what happened to Optimus Prime.
Yes. I wasn't able to see Transformers, as it was coming out. But I had the movie on VHS, and it was one of those pirate VHSs, because I think maybe someone owned it, and then they had a VHS duplicator, which was, the style at the time.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
I remember seeing that, and I loved Hot Rod, and I loved Rodimus. It's like, what happens next? And then years later, I found out, they kind of just basically made him a jobber for some reason, and it's like, why did you do that? Oh, because he killed Optimus. But it's like, but Rodimus was so cool in the movie. He had a cool toy. What are you doing?
It kind of seemed like they were trying to do something different where, well, we don't want him to be this know-it-all leader and stuff, so let's try to do something unique with him. But all it did was kind of kneecap him a bit.
Yeah.
He kept doubting himself and all that. And I can understand that in the beginning because he's kind of new at this. And then they're just like, no, we'll just bring back Optimus Prime. And to be fair, at the time, I love that. I'm like, Optimus Prime is back.
Yeah.
After a while, I thought Rodimus could have used a better storyline.
Yeah, he definitely could have.
Yeah.
Now, Jay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you say you know the majority of the movie by heart, right?
Pretty much.
Well, I had one triple changer when I was a kid. It was the one that said this line. See if you can tell me who it is. I've got better things to do tonight than die.
Oh, great. I don't remember the other name. The majority in that one that we saw would have been Astro Train, but still.
Yeah, this was an Autobot.
I know who it is, but I'm not saying it.
Yeah, I know who it is, too.
I can't think of the name. You got me on the spot, dude.
Well, you can tell me what he transformed into.
Oh, wait. I'm thinking of the Decepticons. My bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a helicopter. What the heck is his name now? He was always around RC.
Yeah. All right, everyone, say it with me.
Yeah, say the name, please.
Springer.
Cannot believe I forgot that guy's name.
My brain immediately goes to Decepticons when I hear the word changer too, so don't feel bad.
That's the reason why.
Right. Yeah, they had the better triple changers, to be fair, because I saw the classic Broadside one time after getting the Titan Master version. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this figure really needed a refresh.
Yeah, he is kind of weird.
Now, the reason why I say most of the film is because Blur is a little too fast.
Yeah.
Keep up at times.
Oh, Mike has a terrible question.
Uh-oh.
To answer that question, because I used to actually I collected for the Transformers and Revenge of the Fallen. The toys are actually pretty good, especially the ones not based on movie figures, like the RC figure from the very first live-action movie. That is an amazing figure. But
I had
pretty
that.
much... Huh. Yeah, so you showed a picture of it, and you're like, was it Scarlet riding on her?
Yeah, they worked with the 25th anniversary G.I. Joe figures.
Huh.
Yes. But to answer Mike's question, pretty much every character that has shown up in the movies at this point has had a figure either through the original line or through the newer Studio Series line. They actually were pretty good sometimes about going back and actually redoing figures that didn't get any at the time or didn't get good ones. Because it was hit or miss with the movie line for a while. Because I remember... we didn't really get a good Megatron out of that line of the first movie. Like, there was a big version. I had the leader figure, but he was actually kind of disappointing because they were still kind of in the what was it? The tail end of the Armada Energon Cybertron series. So it was loaded with gimmicks, but it wasn't a good... it was like a good toy, but not a good display piece or good thing to fiddle with because it had light up sounds and other kind of stuff. And I kind of just let it sit on the shelf a long time until I just finally gave it away or got rid of it. I was just... eventually they did re-release a version of that figure. I also got an upgrade kit for it, so it's more movie accurate. I don't really like that movie, but I liked that design for Megatron for whatever reason. I liked the weird jet, so it was nice to get finally a good version of that through the Studio Series.
Now, Mike has an even worse question, but first I want to address what Sharon's been asking me. We used to take trips to New Hampshire. My parents like to go up to Jefferson so we could go to like Santa's Village and whatnot. And we used to stop in Nashua, and we'd usually have lunch or dinner at this place called the Greenridge Turkey Farm, which is long gone now. But there was a mall up near there, and apparently and I do have a memory of this, there was also a department store, which she said was called Stewart's, which I've been to, and apparently I got toys there too, more than likely. So, but yeah, Mike's even worse question: do the stupid humans get any figures? Can I put Mark Wahlberg into my oven?
To answer that question as well, I stopped collecting figures for a good span of time. From like, I think the last few figures I can remember collecting were Bludgeon from the Revenge of the Fallen line. They had like a second wave of that had some subtitle I don't remember, as well as some other miscellaneous figures that weren't in the movie. That Bludgeon figure, if you can find it, is really good. He has problems with the treads, so that's something to watch out for, because it's that soft rubber that can sometimes melt or just, dry rot. I think mine's still in okay condition, but apparently, after I stopped collecting, they did a toy line based on Dark of the Moon, and that did actually have a subline where you'd get like one of the movie characters, and they could transform into a vehicle or a robot, but also into a battle platform. And they also came with about a G.I. Joe or maybe mask-sized figure that could slot in there. Whether Mark Wahlberg, good old Marky Mark, and the Funky Bunch got a figure, I can't say. I think they were more like just like military people or something. Like, I don't think like Spike got a figure, to the best of my knowledge. Someone else who's more knowledgeable in that era of Transformers could probably school me on that, but yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Only thing I remember from that, I think they may have called that a Human Alliance line or something weird.
That's
that.
Right. That's right.
And they were really small. They weren't G.I. Joe size, but that one kicker figure that came out was I think they used a Japanese Microman figure, the base for it or something.
Oh, wow.
Huh.
I forgot what the story was with that, but I was never able to get one. Because I wasn't really paying attention to that Transformers cartoon that Kicker came from, but I did want that figure just because it came with a G.I. Joe sized figure and worked with it. But I think the Human Alliance stuff, it was kind of close to mask size.
Yeah, I'm looking this up. Actually, Sam Wiki, not Spike, excuse me. He did get a figure. I can't remember who Mark Wahlberg plays. Actually, wait, no, is that Spike? There is a Spike. Yes, he comes with Backfire. He's in the basic wave. Hold on, let me look this up. So yeah, I think you can in fact get a figure of Mike Wahlberg.
But speaking of putting stuff in ovens, or is that Shia LaBeouf?
Okay, I'm looking it up. One says Spike Wiki. That's Shia LaBeouf, but there's another one that's Sam. Hold on. But which one
he's
is
Sam
which?
Wiki, who's supposed to be Spike.
Okay, so one of them says Sam, one of them says Spike. I'm confused. So I don't know if you can get it's whatever. Just go ahead.
As far as I know, he was Sam in the cartoon series, but everybody just called him Spike, and his dad Sparkplug.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, speaking of putting things in your oven and things melting, who here remembers Battle Beasts?
Yep.
I've seen them, but I never. That was like before my time.
Battle Beasts were these, I don't know, about 1.5 inch tall figures that were basically in the shape of all these different like humanoid animals. And they'd have, you remember the stickers on the Transformers that were heat sensitive? You put your finger on them and then lift it up, and you could tell whether it was an Autobot or Decepticon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they had. Go ahead, Jay.
Oh, I said I always loved that, where you can just rub it and it's like, oh, he's a Decepticon or that. But Autobot. I just love that little neat design that they did with the toys back then. Anyway, sorry.
They did the same thing with Battle Beasts, because the whole thing, it was the elements fighting each other. So you had your fire, your wood and water and earth, I think. But my brother collected a lot of those. I mean, a ton of them. And I had one or two, mainly the aquatic ones. But I remember one day I was bored. Parents had gone out, my sister had gone out with them, I think. And I approached Ryan, because we're getting to be old enough to be able to stay home on our own. And I'm bored. So I'm like, hey, Ryan, any of these battle beasts you don't care about? So he goes through. He's like, yeah, I don't like this one. Why? You want to see what happens when you put it in the microwave? He's like,
That's
okay.
wild.
Oh, it gets better. We put him in the microwave. Sure enough, he starts melting. And we have one of these old microwaves, you know. Not these little plastic things like they have today, but this was like, you know,
Solid piece of metal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So put it in, set the time, and sure enough, he starts melting. And eventually, he's just a blob on a paper plate. So we take it out, and we're like, cool. And then,
Oh my god.
oh, it gets better. They had all these little bubbles that were in the plastic after it melted, and they started to pop, which was fine up until the horrible, horrible smoke started billowing out of them.
Oh god.
And we're like, we're going to turn on the water, ran it under the water. It's like, oh, I should do it. Nope, still smoking. crap.
Oh my god.
So we got it outside. We got it outside, and the thing's still smoking, right? So I'm like, Ryan, go grab a shovel. So we dig a hole and dump it in there and bury it. Of course.
Oh, wow.
We go back inside, and the place stinks like melted battle beast.
Oh no.
Open the doors, open the windows, turn on the fans, point them out. Parents got home maybe half hour later. And my dad walks in.
Oh no.
Did you guys burn hot dogs?
Let's go with that.
That's exactly what it was. We burned hot dogs, yeah. All right. Whew.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
Yeah. We've never tried that again, I can tell you that.
Yeah, cooked it for my wife, Morgan Fairchild. Yeah, that's the ticket.
Battle piece, hot dog, you know.
Yeah, they smell the same. They both have acrid smoke that come pouring out of them when you overcook them.
Hot dog can't be a type of beast. Let's go.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
The thing,
thinking on that. Sorry, go ahead, Prime.
I was about to say, the thing that I remember about that, whatever they used to make the rub-on technology for battle beasts and the Transformer decals. I remember when those little strip thermometers that you could put on somebody's arm, and you would see it like the temperature go up. It was like little sections for however warm they put the little thing on. It was like it's kind of like a rubbery plastic.
A mood bracelet, right?
But it was a thermometer.
Huh.
And it was used to take your temperature, like on the back of your wrist. And you would put it on there, and depending on how warm there was a line for each, like each temperature range. And I remember those being cool when I was a little kid, and that was like years before they were showing up in Transformers and stuff. But it just seemed like such a space age thing to have, and then all of a sudden they just disappeared.
Weird.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird stuff like that.
Yeah. So, Mo, you set a peep on fire, huh?
Yeah, I just saw that.
And why'd you think I was going to do a story about shrinky dinks, Prime?
Because you said something about putting stuff in ovens, and we're talking about toys.
Oh no, I never actually had shrinky dinks. What I did have was Presto Magics.
Oh, those were better.
Oh yeah, got a whole bunch of different ones. You had like Star Wars, Batman, Superman. I think they did some Marvel ones too, didn't they?
I believe they did.
Yeah, we used to get them when we went on trips, and it was always fun messing around with that stuff.
It's like, even though they were stuck in one spot after you used them, they were a lot more colorful than color forms were at that point. Those things usually only had like a few colors up until like maybe the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm. All right, Aris, have a good one.
Oh, good night, Aris. Have a good weekend.
Yep. But yeah, Presto Magic were fun. But speaking of Marvel and DC, Here's a good question for you. Who remembers the early 80s Marvel and DC action figure lines that came out?
I do.
Yeah, I
Not
figured you
very
said
well.
that. There was what was it, the Superpowers line, I think was the DC one.
Yep.
And
Yep.
Secret Wars from Marvel, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, my brother collected both of those. And he even had the Hall of Justice.
Yo, I did not have that.
That was one of his big presents for Christmas that year.
And that was a great looking toy set too.
Mm-hmm. That was one that our mutual friend Sam had also collected as well. Hey, Bats, how you doing?
Yo, how's it going,
That-
Bats? And yes, I did have some Visionaries. Those
Yep.
were some incredibly cool toys. Not
Same
not
here.
just the holograms. Those were some really nice sculpts.
The holograms were pretty cool as well.
Yeah, I remember seeing those in stores, though I never bought them. But I read the comics. The Visionaries were cool. Sharon, you were there. Funny, I don't remember you being there at all. So, yeah, she says she was. Then I don't know what she was doing. I figured she'd have been losing her mind because we were, smoking out the house with a melted battle beast. But
Great hot dog.
what's that, Jay?
It's a great hot dog.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what made it smoke. Was just the standards for plastic that different in the 80s? Because I know they've changed the formula a few times.
Well, no, the battle beasts were made of kind of a rubberized plastic. They weren't like a hard plastic.
Oh, that
So
makes sense.
But I'm wondering if that rub-on technology stuff might have had something to do with it.
maybe they were really,
'Cause
really.
I have
Uh,
I have no idea what was in those things or what they were made out of.
well, all I know is the one on the battle beast were really tiny, so I don't think it would have contributed to that much smoke.
Yeah, that's why it just seems weird.
Hey, Steve, how's it doing?
Hey, mister.
So, yeah, that. But as far as those Marvel and DC toy lines, the Marvel ones, I remember, and this is something I talked to Sam about at one point. Captain America came because they all had these shields that had the what are those called when you can move them and they change pictures?
Lenticular animation.
Yes. He came with a shield like that, but he did not come with the actual Captain America shield.
That irked me.
Yeah, understandably so. Oh, but yeah, those were pretty cool. They didn't last very long, though, did they?
Nope. They got 2 series out of them in the United States. They were working on another one, but some of them came out in Europe.
Hmm.
I think it was Electro, Iceman, and the Constrictor.
Huh. So that lasted a little longer in Europe. I did not know
Yep.
that.
And
That wasn't uncommon for 80s toy lines. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, oh yeah, because we've all heard the stories about the Action Masters we couldn't get.
Yep.
Is that what you were thinking about?
That might have been.
Yeah,
actually.
and then eventually we did get some of the European exclusive molds for the end of the toy line in the Machine Wars line, but I still think there are some that are only European or only were in the European market.
Yeah, and there
Yeah,
were plenty of those.
A few years ago, someone uncovered artwork that was drawn for later series of Secret Wars figures, and I'm trying to remember who in fact, they were talking about they were going to finally put the Hulk in there, which I always thought it was goofy that they just never made the Hulk because, oh, we don't want to have to make another mold.
Oh,
Because
please.
Secret War, for those who don't know, Secret Wars figures basically they're made by Mattel. They kind of use the same philosophy from Masters of the Universe, where a lot of the figures use the same molds for the body parts.
Mm-hmm.
And only a few of them were unique. Doctor Doom, Iron Man. Well, Doc Ock, at least he had holes in the sides to put the arms, but I don't remember. I think Hobgoblin may have had a different torso, but they shared a lot of the same body parts. And
It's funny, Doctor
I
Doom
think
was
that's what,
he was the
yeah,
first one that
Doctor
came to
Doom,
mind when you said that.
yeah, because Doctor Doom, the armor that they made up for him basically has Iron Man's arms and legs, like the classic Iron Man. I think it was the V4 armor from the comics.
Mm-hmm.
And they just reused those arms for Doctor Doom and just gave him a new body and a new head. And they were, well, no, he had an arm, he had a leg band where you could put his pistol. So his leg was a little different. So they made like a variation of the leg mold. Now in series
Mm-hmm.
two, they started branching out and add more parts, but you know, it was, I think it was kind of too late by that point because they had weird they had a weird character selection. Like they had Kang in there,
Yeah, they
and
did, didn't they?
almost, yeah, and almost nobody knew who Kang was at that point. I mean, and I had like a few Avengers comics, and even I didn't know who he was. I knew everybody else, and
Huh.
everybody else they picked would show up on Spider-Man as in his Amazing Friends, and you'd think, well, even though yeah, that cartoon was over by then, but it was still airing on NBC. I think it aired up until like 1984. So I always thought it was weird they didn't try to capitalize on, okay, were there any popular episodes of that show we could tap into, because kids would have known who the characters were.
Yeah.
But most kids kind of knew who Dr. Octopus was at that point, and Magneto did show up in she showed up in the Amazing Friends cartoon and the Solo series, but he also showed up in an episode of that 70s Fantastic Four cartoon.
Really?
So
Oh, I forgot about
yeah,
that one.
so there was, so Magneto was kind of known. If anybody was the least known by that point, it was, except for Kang, it was Wolverine. He only started getting, that was like the start of his popularity at that point.
Yeah. That's right.
Like on the flips, oh good.
I was gonna say he was just really getting started at that point, wasn't
Yep. There wasn't really very much X-Men merchandise out there at that point. For Marvel Comics, the big three were Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Captain America. And them leaving the Hulk out, while I think the TV show was either still running first run on CBS or it was still heavy on reruns, leaving the Hulk out, that was just weird.
he? Yeah. So, did Spider-Man get the black suit? Brandon wants to know.
Yep.
Nice.
Second, he gets that in the second series of figures.
I remember the original
Wow.
outfit, but let's check the chat here for a sec. All right. Steve says, talking pops here. Ray and Falcon, $4.99, buy one get one, huh? Nice. I have a small collection of Funko Pops myself, so just different ones I wanted here and there. And went on to say, who remembers those wrestling figures from the 80s?
Oh yeah.
I remember.
You could pop off the limbs, right, and swap them around.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Those things were
And
heavy too.
And I think they shared some of the parts with their He-Man knockoff line. At least I think the Remco did.
Now that wouldn't.
I never had any, but it kind of looked like they were using the same mold.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about, because I think I had one of those bootleg He-Mans, or one of those knockoffs.
Yeah, because a few of them were really licensed things. They had that DC Comics had a series called The Warlord. Mike Grell, I don't know if he wrote it, but I know he at least did some art for it. And Remco, weirdly enough, did a toy line for that because the figures looked the characters were vaguely He-Man. And that was when everybody was trying to find a way to cash in on that.
Cash in on the He-Man popularity. Speaking of which, I just saw what Bats had to say about the reusable limbs, making him think of Modulok. I remember that character.
That was cool.
Yeah.
There was a robot equivalent too that was like the hero equivalent. I can't remember its name though.
I can't either, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, He-Man we haven't really touched on much yet. But that was a pretty cool toy line, despite not being the size of the G.I. Joes and whatnot.
Yeah,
I had
I
several
still
of them
liked
myself.
it.
Oh yeah. Oh, you just watch a cartoon. But I know I had He-Man and Skeletor and a few other figures. I can't really remember who off the top of my head. My brother had more of them than I did. Never got Castle Grayskull though.
Oh, I had it.
Always wanted one.
That was a cool play set. That was one thing Mattel really did nice work on play sets. I mean, we were talking about Secret Wars. It's funny how much work they put into the Tower of Doom, but then all the reuse they had in the figures, it was just such a weird line. But with He-Man, that was probably one of the most iconic play sets, short of the Death Star.
Yeah. And didn't they also have Snake Mountain as well?
Yep.
I believe so, yeah.
And
Yep.
I want to say there was also an Eternia playset that connected the two.
I don't know if it connected, but they did have an Eternia set, and they also had a smaller set for the Evil Horde called the Fright Zone.
I remember that. Didn't it have the slime pit in it?
I think the slime pit was separate, but I think there was like a giant monster puppet you could use to act like it was grabbing figures or something like that. I just remember the ads.
I definitely remember seeing the ads for the slime pit. That seemed
I don't think I remember
interesting.
that at all.
And you could also get like the separate. They kind of look like garbage, like Eternian garbage cans or something. You could get like the garbage cans full of slime.
Yeah.
They've kept that aesthetic with slime and future toy lines as well. That seems to be the universal thing.
Slime belongs in garbage cans.
Kids love goop and they love garbage cans.
Yep.
Fair.
And as I recall, they did the She-Ra line too, but that was more doll oriented.
Those were fashion dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And later on, when they did the Masters of the Universe movie, they released some action figures from that too.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing Blade.
The one I remember,
I think he died. Didn't he die in the movie?
Possibly. It's been years since I've seen it.
And
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it as well.
Eternian Garbage Pail Kids. That would be something.
That'd be fun.
But I remember the one action figure I saw from the Masters of the Universe movie was Gwildor.
Oh no!
yeah,
Oh, Billy Barty.
Yeah.
I think he even had that toy. Door.
Wow. And what do we have, like the Cosmic Key or something like that?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm
the
done.
MacGuffin device.
Exactly, the MacGuffin device.
That came out when? 1987, I want to say.
Yeah, 87.
The movie?
Had a very young Robert Duncan McNeil in it too.
Yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Courtney Cox, but they were both really young.
All I know is that kind of marked the end of my association with He-Man. The movie is kind of just where I'd pretty much outgrown it, and it was like I'll watch the movie because it's He-Man, and then I watch the movie and it's like, what the hell is this?
It's like
what the hell was that?
Story.
That's called a cut budget.
I'll say.
The whole thing. Whenever you're in a fantasy setting and you suddenly have to go to Earth, that's called the cut budget.
You're not kidding.
Fish out of water.
But yeah,
well, considering the budget, I think went overboard because he used more of the budget for that film, even though they took the money from Superman 4, if I remember right, the story now. So that's why Superman 4 looks a lot worse.
Oh, God.
yeah, that would explain a lot. And it's funny the parts where they go back to Eternia, you see that money on the screen.
Yeah.
Those scenes look nice, but it's like that the styrofoam packing peanuts of the Earth part it just drags it down so much.
Did they even make
Nuclear.
any figures from Superman 4? I don't ever recall seeing any.
No, I don't remember seeing any.
But for the He-Man thing, though, I basically went into it expecting to see characters from the cartoon. And this was not what I was expecting.
Now I ended up with a couple new characters. Like, well, what does the guy with the hook? What was his name? Erg?
Yeah,
Erg?
I think his name. I think there was a guy named Blade, and there was a weird, and I don't remember what his name was. He looked more like a Star Wars character than it. Like they were trying to make a Star Wars character or something.
You cut out for a second there, Prime. What would you say that character was like?
Oh, I said it looked like they were trying to make a Star Wars lizardy kind of character.
Yes, it almost presaged the. There was a similar looking character in The New Adventures of He-Man.
Oh boy.
Oh, gotcha. But I think you're talking about the one character that kind of dies off quick.
Yeah.
He
was pissed off.
Yeah. Now, how about some of those, lesser known toy lines? Like, to get back in the Indiana Jones tangent for a second, LJN released a series of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom action figures, which bombed. Let's put it this way: the entire toy line.
That blows my mind that LJN even did that.
Yeah, and the entire toy line consists of 3 action figures. That's it.
Jeez.
There was Indiana Jones, there was Mola Ram, and the Giant Thuggy. I remember seeing these in the stores, and as big of an Indiana Jones fan as I was like, these suck. They were a lot bigger than the earlier ones Kenner did, and they looked terrible. And I was like, yeah, I'm not buying this crap. Kind of
So
wish
it's very on brand.
I remember seeing those. Remember that weird toy section I remember talking about? And I said I can't remember what the store was.
Uh-huh.
In their regular toy section, those things were in there. And all I can remember is there were Indiana Jones that I actually saw in stores, and I didn't buy them. So all I keep thinking is they must have been bad.
Yeah. No, they didn't even make short round. They had them planned, along with Willie, but they never made it out of the prototype stage. But I kind of wish I had bought all 3 of them now because they're worth a fortune.
Yeah, I bet.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense.
Yeah, and then there was I just had another one in mind, and then it just went. I mean, I could bring up GoBots, but those are fairly well known for what they are.
What about the Rock Lords, though? Those were pretty cool.
Rock Lords.
The what, sorry? Rock Lords.
I did not. I remember them, but I didn't have any Lords. I remember the He-Man comic characters that transformed from like a rock into a person with kind of flat limbs, but I don't remember the Rock Lords.
I remember
the Rock Lords, but I didn't have them.
I remember both of them. My
I
brother
didn't have
had one
any
of the
either.
He-Man ones. But I don't remember enough about the Rock Lords to even say much about them.
Didn't they have they had an animated GoBots movie introducing them or something like that?
I think so, or some kind of special.
Yeah, it was like
GoBots Battle of the Lock Road.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That was it. But all right,
came out the same year as Transformers, the movie.
Ouch!
Oh, probably got stumped.
Oh, and by the way, I don't know. Well, I don't know if Rob knows about this, but some of the GoBot characters since Hasbro bought the rights to Tonka and basically Tonka owned the GoBots, Hasbro owns the GoBots, and every once in a while there's like a GoBot tribute somewhere in Transformers.
Ha.
Yes,
Oh, I did not know that.
the newest line that Hasbro is doing. I think has Crasher in it, the female race car.
Yep, I've got her sitting in my pile of loot in Big Bad Toy Store right now.
Nice.
That's
I
awesome.
had
I'm
to
waiting for
pre-order that
Sidekill.
because I missed
Sorry, go ahead.
they made a Crasher before this, and I think it may have been the same mold. I don't know, but I missed that one, and I said I'm not missing this, even with all the ridiculous pre-orders that are going on right now. I said I'm not missing it this time.
I don't blame you. I would have liked a what was the name of the GoBots, the good GoBot leader?
Oh, Leader One.
Ah, yeah, I was right, leader one. I would have liked to have him in a Transformer style. But
Yeah,
That-
the part of the go ahead.
I was going to say that's just awesome. They're actually doing that.
Yeah, part of the problem is the design. They have the rights to the name, and I guess the colors, the vague color schemes that they used in America. But as far as some of the designs, that's somebody else.
Hmm.
Bandai
And I
owned
don't-
the rival toy line. That was Machine Robo, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. That what was that? Something Revenge of Kronos or whatever that was. What was that? There was some kind of an anime there was some kind of anime OVA series or something that they put out too.
I know what you're talking about, but I forget the name. I remember seeing pictures from it, and it was surreal seeing like anime style GoBots.
Yeah, I still want to see it just because of that. Because it's like, man, if they would have gotten that treatment in the U.S., they might have done a bit better.
I can tell you, I used to watch the GoBots cartoon, but I never had any of the GoBots. Like, not even one.
I think I had a couple.
Yeah, I had a few of the small ones, and I had some of the ones where they transformed, but the head was just the window and the front and back window of the VW Bug, whoever that was.
Oh, like Ironhide's original figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. But then later on, they did make bigger Sidekill, but I was never able to get those.
Nope, I never had a one. Another one that just came to mind as far as obscure toy lines was the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons line.
Oh yeah, with War Duke.
War Duke, that's the one I always wanted out of the bunch. I knew
I
someone
got
that had
that.
it.
I got that NECA War Duke now that they put out. They put out War Duke, Strongheart, a dwarf, and some guy who looks like a bunch of snakes that I can't remember what his name was.
I may have to look up that Nega War Duke. But
They made a regular version, and then they made specifically look like the toy deco.
oh, nice. Yeah, that was one. I remember seeing most of the line in pictures, but War Duke, I actually knew somebody actually had him. So that was the extent of my experience with that. Even less so was Inhumanoids. If you remember those.
They were expensive.
Right.
Yeah, they were.
That was
They were
they
cool
were
looking.
yeah. I mean, you had a bunch of cool looking monsters and dudes in armor. It's just that with all the stuff coming out at once and them being so expensive at the baseline, it was kind of tough to get into. I didn't know many people that had them.
Yeah, I think I ran into someone who had one of them once, and I think he might have got it used. So, but they were really cool. Didn't they have a really short-lived cartoon too?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Hector Ramirez shows up in that too.
That's right. It was it was Sunbow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Excuse me, I was getting a drink of water here.
Hey, no problem. I was trying to remember some of the other obscure ones. And we talked about Visionaries. They didn't last too long over here.
Yeah, we talked about him for a second. I forgot who someone in chat brought him up. I
Yeah,
gotta
that was
scroll up and see
Bats in
who
the
it
Bell Tower.
was. Yep, that was one of the cool visionaries, and cops were kind of the way I thought action figures were
Oh,
going to go for a while, with the bigger
I love that
figures and a lot of
show.
articulation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were incredible.
But wasn't there also another line called Sectars?
Yep,
Yes.
with the insect theme going on.
Yeah, that's right. It's like these kind of bug people who would ride on giant bugs.
Yeah, and
Yes, I remember that.
they even had they had a cartoon. I don't know if it was, I don't remember if it was daily or weekly.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I saw it once or twice. I remember seeing the comics.
Yeah. I
And
had
yeah,
I had the good guy, but that was it.
hmm. I never knew anyone had any of them. Not even my brother. There was also like Crystar, the Crystal Warrior, or something like that.
Oh yeah, that was, I think that was a Marvel developed joint.
I think you're right.
And it's funny because he popped up last year in Marvel Legends, and
I
everybody
was
kind
gonna
of flipped.
say,
I still have to get mine, but everybody flipped out over it because I never had a Crystar figure, but I wanted one. They just looked cool.
Huh. Yeah, that I
yeah, it's a
remember.
great looking figure.
I remember them making fun of one of the comics on Stupid Comics. So, oh, geez. But, there are so many action figure lines that just kind of came and went at that time that it's hard to remember all of them. And hell, we
There's,
That
had.
is,
Go on.
oh, I was about to say, there's one that I'm trying to remember the name right now, and I can't. They were, I think they were called no, they weren't the Infaceables. I think that was a different line. There was a line where the actual parts of the bodies of the figures were holograms,
Ah.
and I'm trying to remember what the name of those were.
Speaking of that, Steve, that's something we never even touched on. Were basically the quote unquote girls' toys, except for She-Ra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Most of my experience there was through my sister. She had a lot of My Little Ponies and such like that, so that's a familiar line that's still going. I think the most interesting one she had though was like when Sailor Moon first came out in the United States. They came out with a bunch of fashion dolls, and I think she had almost all of those. And that was right before it got canceled. I think it only lasted about a season before Cartoon Network picked it back up.
That just makes
yeah,
you
it
think.
wasn't syndicated for long.
Yeah, I think I remember catching like one episode once. But this just makes me think we could have used a female perspective on this particular stream.
Yeah, defos.
Yeah, if Mo's still around, I believe she told me she had My Little Ponies. Yep, there she is. And I know a girl woman now, but who had Gem and the Holograms dolls, and said she was showing them to her stepkids once, and they were like, "Why do they have such big hair?" And then
oh boy.
It was the style at the time.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking of that belt onion.
yeah, that was your style at the time. Now, my younger brother, when he was much younger, actually he did have a Barbie.
Huh.
Carried it around with him. So, my parents never did anything to discourage it.
Yeah.
They had Mego was putting out 12-inch tall figures at the time, and they did that with Star Wars too.
Yes, they did, actually. I remember that. We had a Darth Vader. And to this day, I think he's still on our old property, buried under about 30 years worth of leaves and tree droppings. For that matter, they also took the Han Solo from that line. And, well, it was like a pine tree, so it'd be sap and stuff. That's the last place I ever saw that Darth Vader. I'm pretty sure he's still there.
Yeah, that was a chunky hostile figure. That was
Hmm.
that, and they even had the Jawas had,
Yeah.
but they had because
Hmm.
I never had any of the regular humans. I had Vader. I think I had a Stormtrooper. I had Chewie, and I had C-3PO and R2-D2, but
Now,
never any of the regular humans.
now remember that friend of mine who had the USS Flag also had apparently the rarest out of those large Star Wars figures. He had IG-88.
Oh
Wow.
wow.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wow.
Hmm. I was like, this is the biggest IG-88 I've ever seen.
Trying to
But
go full
Oh
scale.
yeah.
but
And I forgot that reminded I did have Boba Fett
oh,
with the
nice.
with the view scope, and of
Oh,
course
Yes, I've
somebody
actually
stole that.
of course.
I I didn't have that figure, but a my mother's therapist did. When she would go there, I would play in the section. Like they had like a children's section, and I remember that figure distinctly. I also remember part of a figure. I don't know what toy line it was, but I want to say it was like a toy based on one of like Mazinger Z or one of those properties. I don't know if it was from the 70s or
Oh,
what, but it was
oh, the
it,
Shogun
it was
Warriors.
yes, it was it was like the torso piece, I think. It was like this weird monster head with magnetic bits or something on it. I actually stole that from the place, but then I returned it and I actually apologized to the guy and he was really impressed.
It
Now,
was so it was a monster that had magnetic. That could make. I wonder if that was a Micronaut. I think there were
It
some
might have
magnetic
been.
Micronauts from the
Hmm.
70s.
hmm.
I I might be able to look this up real quick on the side. Hold on.
While you're doing
Oh
that,
yeah.
I want to bring up one
Oh
other thing.
okay. Sorry.
All right, those large Star Wars figures. They actually took the Han Solo figure from that, and then threw him in Indiana Jones's clothes and packaged him as Indiana Jones. I will say
Okay.
the hat they gave him looks absolutely ridiculous. It's like this big felt thing that just is completely out of shape. It's like it does not look like his actual hat at all. But that was the only one they ever did.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it's one of the harder things from that Adventures of Indiana Jones line to find. So I was also missing that, so I guess that counts.
Well,
But
you got stuff in the cool scale. That's what counts.
yeah,
Exactly.
so
Oh yeah, that action figure line I was trying to find the name for. They were called Supernaturals.
Huh.
why does that sound
Okay.
I
so
don't know if I've heard
familiar?
of that one.
They were. I only saw those in that weird toy store, and maybe every once in a while in Kmart. I mean, not a weird toy store. It was a weird department store. They just had the weird toy section. And
Right.
those supernaturals, I would always see them in that weird section along with the Power Lords.
Oh, that sounds so familiar, but I can't
And
place
of
them.
course, the villain has a skull head, but he also has a rib cage you can see. And it's a like I said, the head and the rib cage, the torso, they're all a hologram. So you can kind of look around and stuff. And I think the hero character, I think he may have been lion based or something. I just really don't remember. I just
This
remember the skull guy because I made a sprite out of him for Halloween, for the Halloween site updates. Because I mean, he's a skeleton guy, and
is
it's everybody was expecting Skeletor, and it's like, nope, it's from a toy line only a few people heard of, but the few people that heard of it, the people who remember it will flip out when you mention it because they were kind of cool looking.
yeah. Oh, but it's just like right on the tip of my memory, and it's just not filtering through.
Quick aside, I figured out which character it was. It was Guy King. He had a 2-in-1 figure that turned into a robot skull.
Oh,
And
neat.
Oh,
sure
okay,
enough,
that's
it looks
weird.
exactly like what I remember.
Nice.
I I had I had like the jumbo Guy King, and that's the only 'cause, I mean it's a Shogun Warriors figure. Not I don't know if many people had more than one of those because one time a bunch of us that had them, we had like a giant fight with them because they had the launching fists and the launching missiles.
Yes.
And since I could never find any of the villains in the Marvel and DC World's Greatest Super Mego 8-inch tall figures, so I just had them all fight Guy King all the time because he was bigger than everybody.
That works.
Also, I'm looking at the Supernaturals line here. This is a very cool toy line. It's about that. I think it might actually be bigger than G.I. Joe scale. I think it's closer to Kenner's real Ghostbusters figures.
Yeah, they seem like they were about that big in the stores.
Yeah.
Hey, can you drop
Very interesting.
Can you drop a link?
Yeah,
to what you're
hold
looking
on.
at? Yeah.
Yeah, I use a website called Figure Realms, which I forgot to note is the actual someone to quote a term that Prime came up. Some absolute fiend decided to take these really sexy glamour shots of all the alien toys, and that's where mine is from. Is from the Figure Realms page for that. Let me see if this link will work. Oh, yep. Let me click on that. See if the hot link went through. Yep. And they show off everything. There were also like a dragon and a winged lion, and these look really cool, especially for the era. Right before TMNT hit too, so they could have actually had some impact, but
Hey, can you post that over in the chat too, like the Discord?
Yeah,
chat?
heck yeah.
All right, cool.
And Figure Realm, that's a great reference site. I'm glad you brought them up. If that's one of those places where if you're trying to remember a toy line, you actually have a decent chance of finding it there.
Nice.
I've seen that site before. It's really good.
I'll probably be exploring that later because I don't think I've ever heard of it until today. Or when?
See,
It's great.
I remember the Tomb of Doom, but I don't remember. Oh, okay, that's probably why I remember a thing being part of it. I don't know if the guy's like that though. Oh, okay, yeah, Lionheart. Okay, never mind.
Now, I remember another one that my brother had a few of, but this was about the time I was starting to get out of toys. So that was Dino Riders.
Dino Rider, yeah.
Yeah, so
those things looked great.
Yeah, we went from the really big to the really tiny. Because the figures themselves were tiny because they had to fit in these big old dinosaurs. And Sharon's had a question about a story I wanted to tell. All right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's another one of those. Except this is about G.I. Joe. There was a super stop and shop that had opened up in Waterford. And we'd go there to shop from time to time. Mostly for groceries, but since it was a super stop and shop, it was more like a super Target or something like that. So one day my grandmother was going up there and I went with her for whatever reason. And we got there, she let me go look at the toys while she went to get something, and I'm looking through the Joes, and I found the one I'd been looking for, which was Storm Shadow. I had a running bet with a friend of mine as to who was going to find it first. And I was like, this is great, except that I have no money. I'm not going to be able to get him. He'll probably get him before I will. Oh, damn it. So my grandmother comes walking back, and just kind of staring wistfully at Storm Shadow and getting ready to go put him back. And she's like, all right, let's go. And she sees that I'm holding this figure. And she's like, is that the one you want? Yeah. Put it in the cart. Oh, okay. And then she looks at me and she's like, no opening it in the car. You don't open it till you get home. You're not going to make a mess in my car. And I'm like, absolutely not. No, I would never dream of it. So, needless to say, we get back home. I go over to my place. I rip him open. And I get all the accessories put on. And then I go to the phone. Hey, Chuck. Guess what I found today? I've known two Chucks in my life. One was this guy that I had the bet with. The other was actually my friend Andre's sister, who for some reason liked to be called Charlie. Me being me, shortened the name to Chuck. I'm one of the only two people who's allowed to call her Chuck. The other's our friend Bo. But yeah, that was the story Sharon wanted to know about.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It is.
And you can read all these stories if you buy my book, Eating Candy in Outer Space. Because I wrote about them in there. And that also...
I was about to say Mike's not on the microphone this time. Who's going to say the line?
Okay, go ahead. Anyone who wants to do it, do it. Do I have to do it? Buy my book. Buy my book. Buy my...
Line, Bart. There we go. It was good for that.
Say the line, Bart, indeed.
Oh, boy.
Buy the books. They're good books.
Yes, they are good books. I'm personally biased because, there's... let's see. 3 out of the 4 people contributed here to the books in one way or another. See, Prime's done the artwork for every single one of my books. And Jay contributed a story to Digital Archaeology. And I'm the guy who came up with this whole crazy idea in the first place. Snarb, you never did. You never contributed
Sadly,
a story.
no, I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't think of a story at the time. If you ever do a reprint, I can actually think of a good one involving the Beavis and Butthead game on the Sega Genesis.
I was actually thinking about doing a second volume rather than a reprint.
Oh.
There you go.
So
Adding more.
Yeah, we'll just put all new stories in there. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, buy my book.
Buy the book.
Buy all my books.
Buy all our playsets and toys.
Cheat Commandos. Weekdays at 4:30. I'm sure Mike would approve of that. Now, someone mentioned the Turtles before. I did not get into those at all because they came out, again, right at the tail end of the 80s. My brother had a bunch of them. All right, Mo. You have a good night.
Mo.
Later, Mo.
Yep. Have a good weekend and good holiday.
Yep. The Turtles were neat. I preferred the video games, but then again, that's just the age I was.
Makes sense.
And let's see. Okay, I was just looking at our background here, and something I didn't bring up. Who amongst us didn't have any die-cast cars when we were younger?
I had a few.
I had a crap one. And you, Jay?
Not much.
Yeah.
I had those micro machine stuff and cars and whatnot, but I wasn't into the whole cars stuff, except for if it was a transformer. So.
Yeah, that was my experience with die-cast toys. Although die-cast car toys. I did get the set of figures. I figured out what they were called years ago, but all I remember is they were called something like Mondo Blitzers, and they took basically the wheels of what would be like a Hot Wheel or Matchbox, and then they put some sort of weird monster or alien or robot on top of it. And my mother wasn't a big fan of those. I always remember eyeballing those as these are a little expensive for what you get, but she did get me one set of them, and they were pretty neat.
Huh, nice. Now,
that's cool.
I had a whole bunch of just, standard Hot Wheels and Matchbox when I was a kid. These days, all those are gone. I have only a bunch of movie and TV related ones left. I started collecting Back to the Future DeLoreans some time ago. I've probably got about 7 or 8 of them. I've got it. Yeah, they come from all 3 movies. So I've also
they've gotten wild. They've gotten wild with the license.
Oh, yeah.
The licensed vehicles in recent years, doing really good jobs with it too.
Mm-hmm. In fact, one of my favorite things that I have for Hot Wheels is the 2-pack of Ghostbusters Ectomobiles from the original movie and Ghostbusters 2.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
I've also got a kit from Knight Rider.
Yeah, if there's one to get,
yes.
I think that might be if you're in the 80s head. I think that's the.
Now, when I was a kid, I know Ertl had put out a set of Dukes of Hazzard vehicles. And you had like the General Lee, Daisy's Jeep, Cooter's tow truck.
Yeah, I think Roscoe Peak-Hole Train's
Yep.
cruiser.
And
I remember that.
Boss Hogg's Cadillac was in there too. So yeah, I had those, and I also had, it was a Knight Rider set they had where it was a little die-cast kit, and you could put it into this launcher, and you had to actually move the launcher with your hand and just make the car go. Yeah, so if you did it hard enough, you'd shoot it right out of the launcher. And it was a nice little kit. There was even a sticker on the inside that showed the dashboard. But the problem was, on both sides of that car, they had Knight 2000 in these big futuristic letters. And I'm like, that's not like the show.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
Yeah, Ertl, you brought up Ertl.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, Ertl, they were the ones who used to have all the licensed stuff because they used to have some Marvel and DC vehicles too.
Oh.
They had of course they had the Batmobile, and I had a Batmobile, but they also put out that Superman, Supermobile that he'd use to go into deep space when there's a chance he might not be able to breathe.
Is that the one
or
that
run
had
into kryptonite?
Is that the one that had the big fists? Yeah.
Yep.
I
The
had
one
one
with
of
the
those.
big fists in the front. They had vehicles for just about everybody.
Did they also have the Spider Jeep or something like that?
I don't remember if they made the Spider Buggy or if they just made some vehicle for him, but they did have a Spider-Man vehicle. There was a Captain America vehicle, and of course there was I brought that up earlier, that they were the big three.
Yeah.
I don't remember what else they had though, but I remember there's a comic book ad, a kind of famous one with the DC heroes running to their vehicles, and it's Superman, Batman and Robin, Wonder Woman, and Captain Marvel. But whenever they marketed his stuff, they had to call him
Shazam. Yeah.
Yeah, because Marvel between the time Fawcett stopped publishing Captain Marvel comics and before DC got the rights to Captain Marvel, Marvel Comics said, "Oh man, that name's floating out there, and somebody might get it." So they just made up a character called Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's why they've got the right, and that's why all the figures of the original Captain Marvel just have to have Shazam on the front.
Figures. Now, Sharon asked a question.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Sharon asked a question earlier she wanted me to read. Is there any video game figure toy sites does Toby know of? Is that what you're asking, Sharon? Because I have no idea what that means unless you're trying to say Snarboo.
Oh yeah, that's quite possible actually, because I see SN there, and Figure Homes would also have video game figures on there. I know that's how I dug up like these really rare Toy Biz figures. I think they did of either Street Fighter 3 or like Street Fighter Cross Capcom or versus Capcom. Excuse me.
Yeah, they had X-Men versus Street Fighter and Marvel versus Capcom.
Yes.
Yeah. And they even did Resident Evil.
Yeah, I had the Resident Evil 2 figures. Those were great.
I remember those.
They worked with Capcom quite a bit, surprisingly. Which it worked out because Toy Biz had the Marvel license. Hell, they kind of had Marvel itself for a little while.
Huh.
Yeah.
That does bring me to something else, though. Something in the way of more modern action figures. The Super 7 and the Reaction figures. They did a whole line of figures based on Capcom's Ghosts and Goblins, Ghouls and Ghosts series. And those are actually really cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, they did 2 box sets of 3 figures each for Ghosts and Goblins, and they did 1 for Ghouls and Ghosts, which was Arthur in his gold armor. I don't think they did it anymore.
Yeah,
So-
that's sorry. Well, I just want to say I've been eyeballing the reaction figures line. I was never big into the Kenner 5-point style figures, but they make some really good ones. And when Super 7 has the license, they usually swing for the fences. Like they'll always come out with really weird figures you wouldn't normally expect to get, or characters rather. But they don't usually have the license for very long for any number of reasons.
You're not kidding. In fact, I remember just a year or two ago when they started their Sesame Street line. I'm looking at the action figures that come out, and I saw one. It's like, I have to have this. It's like, I never thought I would say that about a Sesame Street toy. But it turns out it's a 2-pack of the Yip Yip Martians.
Yep, I've seen that.
I've seen
Yep,
that
yep,
one.
yep, yep.
It's so expensive now.
Oh, of course it is. In fact, I also bought one for Betty. I'm looking behind me. It's actually up on her stuff. Beep, 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 uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm the same way about those reaction figures. I'm not really that big of a 5 points of articulation guy. Like I said, the whole reason why I got into GI Joe was because they weren't 5 points of articulation. I saw it and like all of a sudden you can bend the elbows, knees, turn at the waist, and I mean it seemed like they went a step up. People keep trying to put that 5 point of articulation thing out there, like, yes, this is what everybody loved. No, it was like they looked kind of whack as soon as you saw a Micronaut.
Yeah.
The only reason why they kept going was because it was Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Star Wars, just being Star Wars was enough to make you want it more.
Yeah.
That's why so many of the other, when they started making other lines for Dukes of Hazzard and Chips, they were borderline GI Joes before GI Joe started. They, like I said, they used the Chips figure for one of the Cobra Trooper, or it was either Trooper or well, they didn't call the Cobra Trooper a Trooper, they just called it Cobra.
Yeah, I remember that.
But in the cartoons and the comics, they called him Cobra Trooper. But I'm getting too specific here. But yeah, one of those prototypes was a Chips figure because that's how articulated they were, and toy companies kind of knew that at that point. So the whole thing with the 5 points of articulation reminds me of when people do what they call nostalgic pixel art, but they say it's supposed to be Nintendo, but it looks more like a more square Atari character.
Uh-huh.
Or they'll do the
just-
opposite. Yeah, they'll say
Yeah.
it's a 16-bit sprite, and they say it's 8-bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reaction stuff kind of reminds me of that because the sculpts are so soft looking. While you look at stuff that came out for Empire Strikes Back, I mean, you look at Boba Fett. That's a sharp sculpt.
Yeah, I have to admit, when it came to the Super 7 stuff I've got, I actually basically picked and chose. So
Yeah.
They look great on the card.
yeah, which is where I've left them.
Yeah, I think that's the whole, really, with theirs, that's the whole point of them. But now they're doing O-ring G.I. Joe figures.
I saw that.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen those. I'm wondering how good they actually are.
I've heard they're pretty good. I'm still angry because they made the mass device version of CoverGirl with the long blonde hair and the green outfit.
Really?
They made that in the first set, but I was getting all these pre-orders out of the way, and by the time I'm going to get one, they'd already stopped making it, and it was already going ridiculous money on the internet. So it's into that. But they've got a Duke that looks like he just came out of the cartoon,
I've seen
and
him.
it's got no ring.
Nice.
I mean, they're doing, they're off to a pretty good start. It looks like they're trying to step up from what they were doing with their 1/18 scale stuff. Because, like I said, I mean, they made Big Trouble in Little China figures, and I didn't get them. I mean, what does that tell you?
Yeah. Well, since I just left them on the cards, I got the few that it's a little more than just a few, but, I just, like I said, I picked and chose. It's like I wanted RoboCop. I wanted the Terminator endoskeleton. I actually was given the Alien by Betty. She used to get
Oh,
this.
nice.
Well, she used to get this subscription box that had a bunch of cool stuff in it, and one thing was the Alien figure.
Huh.
So I had to get a Predator to go with that.
Oh, nice.
And then I saw one on their site, and I'm like, okay, I've just got to get this. It was Snoopy as the World War I flying ace. And then one of the other ones was Maximilian from the Black Hole. Always wanted a Maximilian.
That was a great design.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
I actually watched that movie the other night. It's still a bit slow, but not bad. And there's a few more here and there that I got. Now, I don't believe this particular set was by Super 7, but I remember getting them from GameStop on clearance. They had a 4-pack of figures based on Ready Player One.
Huh.
It's like, you know what? I'm going to get those just because.
Believe it or not, those could have been. I wonder if those were Funko, because for a while they were doing figures in that scale, and they were like, I'm not trying to get on Super 7 here, but the stuff they were putting out looked better than what Super 7 was doing as far as how the sculpts looked.
Did Funko also did a line of He-Man style figures, if I recall, and they were actually some of them were based off of horror icons. There was actually one of Freddy, if I recall.
Yeah, I think they were called. It was Savage something. I don't know if it was Savage Rain with Reing, but I mean GN. But they did. I've got the. I was gonna try and customize the Chun-Li because they put Chun-Li out, but they didn't make it look like they didn't look like they were out of Masters of the Universe. They were just in those proportions. I was gonna try and make a custom figure out of the Chun-Li, and that was before Jada announced that they were gonna do Street Fighter figures. But they did Ryu, Chun-Li, Blanca, and Bison. And they did some really good Thundercats too. I mean, people think they only do pops, but they did a lot of stuff on the outside that if it would have been nice if it got more attention. Because and they also made a they had a Mega Man line. It almost looks like they weren't allowed to make it look like regular Mega Man. Kind of like he kind of looks like maybe someone's art interpretation of him, but the Dr. Wily figure looks just like the art.
Huh.
And funny enough, he's in the scale that the new Jada Mega Man figures are in. He basically fits in that scale. But they only made 3 Mega Man figures. They made a regular, and I think they made Leaf Shield, and they made one of the Heat power up color schemes for him. But then they made Dr. Wily, and he just looks exactly like Dr. Wily, and it's just weird looking if you see them next to each other.
Nice. I can picture that, actually. Hey, Jay, you've been kind of quiet over there. Anything you want to throw into more of the modern toy discussion?
For the modern toys,
Yeah.
I haven't really been collecting toys for a long time, except for maybe the odd anime collectors one, that sort of thing. But most of the time, it's been when I was a kid collecting this stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't even I never even heard of reaction figures or things like that. Or what is Super 7? I've been curious about that one. I think it's a Super 7.
Super 7's the name of the company, and the small figures are called Reaction, and the bigger figures they're called Ultimates. They're bigger than Marvel Legends, stuff like that. I think they're like a 7-inch line instead of a 6-inch line, but probably even a bit bigger than that.
Yeah, I have seen them hawking a lot more Ultimate stuff recently.
Yeah,
sorry. they do some really nice sculpts for those. I've got some of the Thundercats, and I mean, some of them just look like they came straight out of the show, especially Mumra.
Nice.
They
Okay.
they
Your
they
Silverhawks figures are great too. The Ultimates. I have one of Monstar, and that's both is transformed and untransformed, and that looks fantastic.
I've seen the pictures of that. That looks great. I've got Steelheart so far. The Mumra figure, they did some. You remember how Mumra would open, like have saliva streams in his mouth?
Yeah.
Yes.
They molded like where the saliva streams would be, but painted it gloss black. So when it hits the light just right, it looks like that effect is in his mouth, kinda.
No kidding.
I mean, they did some pretty cool stuff for those figures. Like I said, that's why I'm trying to say I'm not trying to get on Super 7's case whenever I talked about the reaction figures, because it's like the stuff they do with the Ultimates, they just do some wild stuff.
Okay.
Now, Steve also said that Super 7 has a line of Ultimate Muscle style Mega Man figures in the flesh tone pink.
I forgot about that.
I
I don't have any though.
Millions of unusual small creatures lurking everywhere. Yeah, my brother was big.
Which was
that's
that also tied it to.
Yeah, that was
also
Kaneko
related-
Man or something.
Yeah, and it was related to Monsters in My Pocket as well, wasn't it? Like there was some sort of crossover there.
I don't remember how that worked though.
I know Monsters in My
I don't
Pocket were
either.
about the same size, but they were multicolored, and they came out a few years after Muscle. Big
Yeah.
surprise, my brother collected those too. But what was I thinking of just a minute ago? Something about there was something I wanted to touch on here, and it was just there and gone.
Was it related to modern toy lines or collecting or?
Might have been. It just never trust my memory. That's all I can really tell you. Oh boy, but let's see. I don't think it had anything to do with the older stuff. Was it modern related? Might have been. Nope, it's gone. Completely gone.
I have that happen a lot. I mean, I was sitting here trying to spell a word I can see in my head, but I can't verbally do it.
I know that. Yeah.
Actually, regarding Street Fighter, didn't G.I. Joe do a Street Fighter line at one point?
Yes,
Yes,
they
and
did.
Mortal Kombat. And those are worth a fortune now.
No surprise there.
Yeah, and
Yep.
that kind of trips me out that they're worth so much now. 'Cause I have a Liu Kang figure that people kept trying to buy off of me because I customized it to put the red stripes on the side and I sculpted baggier pants on it because I was just crazy about Mortal Kombat 2. But yeah, in fact, the G.I. Joe, the Street Fighter line was considered part of the G.I. Joe line at first. And the commercial showed that, including the infamous Duke looking at the camera saying, "What's a Dulcim?" And Dulcim's basically floating in the air in his yoga pose. He just whips a leg out and kicks Duke in the head. And Duke just turns to the camera and says, "Oh."
That is a
course-
crossover I never expected.
Of course, there's
Somehow
there's an
it's
unfortunate
with those
bit.
characters.
There's an unfortunate bit with E Honda talking in the commercial. I'm not going to bring up. If you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Oh God.
You can kind of guess,
Yeah.
Yes.
even in the 90s.
Oh well.
But the toy line itself was fun. I mean, even the stuff the first line had a few that they had a few unique sculpts like E Honda, because I mean, what G.I. Joe figure could you make him from?
Yeah, exactly.
But they had E Honda, they had Sagat, and Sagat's torso was longer, so he was actually tall. They did a unique sculpt for Dhalsim, but most of the original figures they were made from G.I. Joe parts. Chun-Li was Ninja Force Scarlet. Ken, I think Ken may have been the one that was a recolored Storm Shadow with just
Okay.
with a different head.
Who'd they make
But
Ryu out of? Quick Kick?
no, that's the fun. He was just another Ninja Force figure. They used figures that had spring loaded gimmicks on them,
Hmm.
so they could do
Oh,
what they
okay.
called fighting moves.
Ah,
They're built a little bit differently. They've got tabs in the torso that lock it into the hips. So when you pull the arms to do a power move, it won't turn the whole body. But they can still but once you can still pop them out of that pose and they'll still turn like regular GI Joe. But then after that, they did the movie figures, and the movie figures split between a bunch of different versions of Guile with Jean-Claude Van Damme's head on.
wow.
But then the regular ones look like regular Street Fighters, including the ones that didn't have unique sculpts in the beginning.
Huh.
So they made Chun. So there's a regular looking Chun Li, Ken. They I'm trying. No, they did do something unique for Vega. They did a Vega. The one figure that didn't come out, and this drove me insane because I didn't know this until years later. They never put out the Ryu figure,
Really? It's odd.
and he's on the back of the package. And
Oh no.
I was looking for that for years, and then I finally get online and I'm looking at stuff on Yojo.com. And I'm like, well, where's the Ryu figure? And then they explained the whole thing. They had the sculpt of it. He's on the back, but they never released it. And I'm
Jeez.
like, are you kidding me? They released multiple Guiles. There's one Guile that's kind of cool because it's the Snake Eyes from the that you saw in the Konami arcade game with the like a black and blue outfit with red goggles and some I think light gray or white on them.
Yeah.
They took that mold and just basically made it all black and gray, making him look more like Snake Eyes than the Snake Eyes figure.
Huh. Jeez.
So of course I had to get that, but I never went through with my plans to make it into a complete Snake Eyes figure, so it's still intact.
Ah. Now, there was one other thing I wanted to touch on before we were done for the night. Now, micro machines were mentioned earlier.
Mhm.
Who remembers when they started releasing micro machines based on sci-fi properties?
You mean like Aliens? Because I had one of those sets.
That's one. The ones I remember the most would be Star Wars and Star Trek. So I
Yeah.
remember one of the few toys I bought in the mid 90s. I started collecting the Star Wars Power of the Force that came out in the mid 90s, the second Power of the Force line. But
Yeah.
I remember going to Toys R Us with my friend Andre and seeing that they had these big ass box sets of micro machines for Star Wars and Star Trek. Well, he got the Star Trek one, I got the Star Wars one. And those were actually really cool. Yeah, there were so many ships that they represented from both franchises in there. So a ton of stuff from the original Star Wars trilogy and a bunch of stuff from the first, I'd say, 7 Star Trek movies and the first 3 series. I don't think they did Voyager until after that box set came out. But those were cool. But that leads me into something else entirely. And this is kind of bringing it full circle back to the beginning. In the early 80s, Kenner had launched another Star Wars line. And now they'd already experimented with like die-cast ships and stuff. But what they ended up doing was making what they called a micro line of basically miniature play sets with die-cast characters. And they had made play sets that you couldn't actually get for the full-size figures, like the carbon freezing chamber. which actually came with a really cool little Han Solo frozen in carbonite. And the neat thing about that was you put Han all chained up, you put it inside, you'd spin the thing around, and when it turned around all the way, there he was in carbonite. So it was like carbon freezing action.
That was a great set.
Yeah, and they had him for Star Wars and Empire, but they didn't do anything for Jedi. Another story about that particular set of toys. I remember having to do a book report in 4th grade. I chose the Star Wars storybook. And we had to make a diorama out of it. So I constructed a diorama, which was basically the hangar bay of the Death Star where the Millennium Falcon was. And I took my Darth Vader and Ben Kenobi and a bunch of stormtroopers and, glued them all to the box. It turned in and I got a pretty good grade on it, even though I didn't build the figures themselves. It got displayed for a while, and then someone stole the figures.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that was going to be the end of the story.
Yeah, I knew that where that was going.
Yeah, that's
Same,
my history.
Same thing happened to one of my Transformers, too, when I brought them to school once. It was just a one of the smaller Autobot vehicles, like Bumblebee. I think it was gears.
Oh, yeah,
actually.
the mini cars.
Yeah. Well, someone ripped off my gears.
Jeez.
Yeah. And the thing is,
a lot of stuff like that.
I went to a very small school, and there weren't a lot of people in each, classroom. It's like we literally had one class for each grade. So, but yeah, whoever did it just ripped me off, and they were never found out. So after that, I stopped bringing stuff to school. Or if I did bring it, I kept it very close to me or hidden. And I never tried to do that with a diorama again.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
I just lost so much of my stuff like that.
Kids, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
There's actually a good story about that in Digital Archaeology written by Shmup Junkie, or Shmup Junkie, I should say, about his copy of Mario 2. Well, anyway, so it's been a fun 3 hours here.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't believe it was just 3 hours.
I know. It feels like it was a lot shorter than that. But
Yeah,
any... yes, Sharon, yes. If you want me to go ahead and tell that story again, I can. But I'm sure everyone here has heard it a bunch of times. All right, fine. Basically, I used to keep some of my larger Star Wars toys in a garbage bag for lack of storage space. And for some reason, I was keeping them close to where we had the actual garbage.
Oh.
Sharon was in charge of taking the garbage out. She grabbed my bag one day and brought it down to the garbage pickup. I lost some good stuff that day, including the turret and Probot playset.
Oh,
damn.
None of the figures, just the vehicles and the playsets themselves. And there was only a couple of them in there. I think there was also one of my cloud car was in there, and Sharon and I, I'm telling the story. I'll get to that. Everyone knows it was an accident. You thought you saw a garbage bag. You thought it was garbage. All right. It doesn't help that for years I would say, you throw out my Star Wars stuff. And it's like, it's actually partially my fault. Because if I'd been keeping them safer, then that wouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. So, never got them back. Or never had them replaced. Nothing like that. But I never kept anything in a garbage bag again like that. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that's a rough lesson.
Yeah.
It is.
Que sera, sera. My parents weren't very happy about it. Hey, at least the Millennium Falcon didn't go, though.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I wasn't going to let that thing go. No way. Well, anyway, so that story aside, anyone got any closing thoughts for any of this?
It was. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say really quick, there's a lot more I could talk about because most of my experiences are in the 90s. There were some toy companies that appeared around that time or series that were only really in the 90s. Like Toy Biz was one of those big companies I collected from. Playmates, we've been making lots of Simpsons references in this one, or a few. They actually had a whole line of like Simpsons figures in the TMNT scale. I didn't collect any, but I remember seeing them in the stores. Like, like I collected a lot of McFarlane figures or McFarlane toys, Spawn figures. There's a lot that could be added. I think it would probably have to take another podcast, but I really think it's fascinating how toys slowly evolved in, mostly for children, which is why some of these older toys that we were mentioning go for so much money because, kids are playing with it. If you have a G.I. Joe, at some point the O-ring snaps, you lose all the accessories, maybe you just have the top torso or it gets scratched or dinged.
Yep.
Finding something like that intact is very hard. But as time went on, especially in the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, toys kind of transformed into more of collector pieces, and it's much, much easier to find figures on card from around that time. Even some of the early X-Men figures and stuff like that. And that fascinates me how it sort of evolved. They still make toys mostly for kids, but whenever you find specimens, like whenever you're going to look for specimens now, they're almost always in box or intact. Like you'll sometimes find loose ones, but it's just interesting how it's evolved. Also, how it has ties to retro gaming, because let me tell you, the secondary market is it's hell on earth, more so than ever.
Yeah.
But Snarb, you brought up McFarlane toys, and I just remembered something. My friend Patrick actually has collected the entire Movie Maniacs line.
Wow.
Yeesh.
And he has it on display in his living room.
Wow, even the Alien Queen, huh? I remember seeing that one in stores, but never pulling the trigger or having the money for it.
I think he also got the thing from the Matrix.
Oh yes, the whatever the Sentinels, I believe they're called.
In the real world, those robots they were having to dodge all the time.
And for that
there was
matter,
a robot exosuit too, I think, as well.
For that matter, he also got the full 4-piece Metallica and Justice for All set.
Wow.
But as far as the McFarlane toys and myself are concerned, there was only 2 I ever wanted, and I have them both. Ash and Evil Ash.
Yeah.
Those look so cool.
Good, bad. Anyway.
I'm the guy with the gun.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yep. And since you're up, Jay, any additional thoughts you want to add before we sign off?
Nothing profound other than the fact that the 80s was quite the time for toys and cartoons alike, especially a lot of them were tie-ins to each other. It was a lot of great memories back then. And I mean, looking back at some of the stuff that we've talked about throughout the night online, just refresh my memory. And I want to get a couple of them again, just to say I have them again.
Yeah.
But no, it was definitely a lot of fun tonight. Just you open up some great memories that I had before that I kind of forgot about and not thought about in a long time. And it's I'm glad you brought this all up again.
I know the feeling there. How about you, Prime?
Oh well, it's kind of funny because for my site, even before you said that we're gonna have this toy thing, I was working on a toy update for my site with just stuff that I've gotten. It's just crazy thinking about we're getting right now. We're getting toys for stuff that we never imagined we'd ever get toys, and as amazing as that is, and the sculptors are doing some of the best work that we've ever seen. It's very hard to get some of this stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
I
yes.
I can't. I'm trying to think if this was last year or the year before. I think it was last year. They came out with the Carol Danvers Warbird, which is basically the original Ms. Marvel. They made a new figure in that outfit. It's a Target exclusive. There's somebody online named Preternia. They announce whenever something somehow gets on the site, and I don't know how they've got advanced, but they posted that figure was on there. I was there, and I was going to pre-order it. It sold out as I was checking out.
Jeez.
Oh my god.
There's stuff that sells out in is less than 10 minutes. Sometimes it's less than 5.
Wow.
And it's kind of this thing where I want to tell people, it's like, man, this stuff is fun. Just find a few, collect a few, and just put up a little display somewhere. But at the same time, it's almost like they're daring you to try to collect it at some point.
Yes.
And there's a really weird balance right now, so it's kind of tough to talk about them where you're getting, man, we got this, like I said before, we got multiple versions of that Mass Device Cover Girl, where they've also got one in the 6-inch line that's coming out.
Huh.
We're getting stuff, and they're Super 7. They make figures of like the really small incidental characters in Thundercats, like the pickpocket guy.
Oh yeah.
And the Space Ranger lady. I can't remember her name. They made her, and they made her bike.
Huh.
We're getting all this amazing stuff, but it's being released in a way where it's a challenge where it's taking kind of the fun out of it for me.
Yes.
I see that.
But
yeah.
But when you can get something these days, it's amazing.
I gotta say, I like how you set up a lot of your pictures.
I've been doing that since I was a kid, but I didn't have a camera to take pictures. I just take a picture and see, oh, that's cool. Maybe a Polaroid every once in a while.
Yeah. There's one that still makes me laugh, where you had the X-Men and Spider-Man surrounding arcade, beat the crap out of them, wearing the colors from the Spider-Man and X-Men arcade revenge game. And this is putting a fucking minecart level in a game with Spider-Man and the X-Men.
That's great.
I will never stop beefing about that. But in hindsight, that is the kind of game arcade would make, because he's kind of a dickhead.
Yeah, exactly.
And he wouldn't make an enjoyable Shinobi 3 style game. He would make just every kind of stage hazard you could have, with an auto-scrolling, with a ball chasing you that's going to kill you if you don't run fast. That is the kind of game that arcade would make if he would make a game. So,
yeah,
in a weird way, it is kind of in character.
But hey, that particular picture was rather cathartic.
Oh yeah. I see Snarb talking about the Cobra Khan. I just heard about that.
Yes, I got lucky. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm still kicking myself that I missed out on that really cool looking merman that came out with like early in the year.
Yes.
And then it just disappeared.
It went poof. Yes. Mattel is especially bad about their figures for whatever reason. Either they you get the peg warmers, as they used to be known, or it sells out. Yeah. You blink your eyes, it's gone. Hasbro, fortunately, with a few recent exceptions, has been kind of okay with that with Marvel Legends. Usually I can get what I want from that line if I want anything. But like those Gamerverse figures, I was just looking the other day. Amazon still had Chumagorath, Gargantos, whatever they have to call them because of licensing reasons. I looked the day after, it was gone. It's not even showing up in a listing. And I'm like, well, I guess that's not for me for now, forever.
They might get some more out. I've got my pre-order in for that one. I couldn't miss that, but
it's hard to say. Yeah,
I'm lucky that I was able to get that Psylocke and Thanos 2-pack too from Target. I got a pre-order in for that.
Yes, that looks amazing.
She is. I'm trying, and I said this on Discord. I'm trying to be polite here. She is specifically Capcom shaped. In the words of Joe Bob Briggs, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. Because they had a bad habit of using these thin molds for certain characters, and sometimes it looked like they sculpted them for the bigger molds. There's the one they call the Moonstone mold because they made the villain Moonstone in it, and she's like a solid looking character, and they use that for a few characters here. And I think they use some of the parts for a Rogue figure and stuff like that. But then they would make a Mystique figure using the skinniest female mold they had, but it made her head look like it was way too for her body.
Oh, jeez.
And it looks like her head was supposed to be for the next figure up, but they said, let's cheap out and use the small body. But that Psylocke looks like they just looked at the sprite and said, okay, that's our Psylocke, and just made it from that.
Huh.
Like I said, they're making some amazing stuff. It's just tough to get because the aftermarket price on that set, it's only just now hitting stores. It's already going for over $100.
Jeez.
You know, that comment you made about Mystique's head just reminded me of something. When I was hanging out with some friends of mine named Josh and Charlie back in the day, we were taking apart their G.I. Joe figures and scrambling the pieces to make new ones. I forget who had the idea. It might have been me, it might have been Charlie, to actually take Doc's head and put it on Roadblock's body.
What? Okay.
Well, Doc's head is very small compared to Roadblock's body, so he basically ended up looking like a big muscular guy with a puny head. And it was hilarious.
Oh, no.
His head just shrank. That's all.
That's hilarious. I'd like to see that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Find a junker, Roadblock, and Doc and send him to me. Oh, but that was a time that'll never come again.
Sadly, yes.
Also, there's not much I wouldn't give for a nicely articulated 3 3/4 Strider Harrier figure.
I'm surprised NECA hasn't done something with that because they did like Aliens vs. Predator, the Capcom game. They had Lin Kurosawa and Dutch.
Yeah, and I think they only did that just because they had the Aliens vs. Predator license. I don't know if they've done any other Capcom stuff other than that.
Yeah,
that's a good point. They did do Contra, right? Is that what you're going to say, Rob?
No, they do Contra. That's Konami.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, though, Strider's rights are kind of complicated anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not just a straight Capcom can go ahead and license them out whenever. You got to go through a Motomiya Kikaku too, or whatever they're calling themselves these days. So
A lot of red tape. Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a company called 52 Toys. They're a Chinese company. They've been doing some really cool Capcom stuff. They did the 4 main characters from Captain Commando, and they've done the 3 heroes from Final Fight, and they've done they've done 3 Warriors of Fate characters. 3 or 4, I don't remember. I think it was just 3.
Really?
But they did them, and they've got some Street Fighter characters coming out. So there's a very strong chance that they may do a Strider figure someday if they can untangle the right.
Well, if I remember correctly, Warriors of Fate also has the same kind of deal going on.
Yeah, because it's a manga series.
Right.
So if they were able to untangle that, there's some hope.
Yeah, as soon as I hear there's a Strider coming out, I'm jumping on it. Anyway. Also, I'd like a nice Vic Viper to put him in because that's just me. Anyway.
Agreed.
But One thing I want to know, though, is when is Namco going to finally relent and give us our Rick Taylor figure? That's not made by Unbox and costs $100.
Yeah, as cool as that
Right.
stuff looks,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that money.
I have one of those Unbox figures, and only because someone gave it to me. That was the Egg Ogre from Stage 6 in the original game. And it's a neat looking thing, too. It just, I would have never been able to afford that. Or Hell Chaos. Hell Chaos is like $100, $150. So those are cool, but I want something a little more affordable when it comes to Splatterhouse.
Yeah.
So
Keep our fingers crossed. They might. I mean, this company's expensive too. Storm Collectibles,
mm-hmm.
but when you do get something from it's ridiculously solid and superposable. I've got some of the Golden Axe figures, and I mean even though they were over $100, you get like Tyrus Flare came with a dragon, one of the Bizarrian dragons. I think it is bigger than she is.
Damn.
Wow.
And she comes with two heads. I think 4 pairs of extra hands, not counting the ones she's got.
Jeez.
And it's just and you can tell it's made out of the good plastic. I'll put it like that.
Yes, there's that good plastic they'll use sometimes, and then there's that very bad plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Oh, and Sharon, Storm Collectibles, they were making Mortal Kombat figures a few years ago, and that seems to have stopped. While McFarlane Toys also had rights, they stopped for a while once the latest Mortal Kombat game cooled down, but now they're putting out some classic figures, but they're in 7-inch scale. So they're a bit bigger than a lot of the stuff out there, but they've got Liu Kang, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Katana, I think, is a store exclusive somewhere, because why wouldn't it be to mess with everybody? And Melina is in a 2-pack with a special Sub-Zero who has like translucent arms or something like that. So, had to get weird on the female figures, I guess.
But one last thing I wanted to go ahead and talk about real quick. I remember it was sometime in the late 90s, there was a guy I knew who used to run a video game store that I frequented all the time. And eventually he shut the place down, but he was kind of running a pirate operation out of his garage for VHS and such. But went over to his place one day and he's like, check this out. And there was, Andre and Braunley were both there with me, and he pulls out this thing. It must have been a good 3 feet tall. This insanely articulated, imposable Gundam. It's like right down to the individual fingers. And it was just one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. He said he got it directly from Japan, so.
Oh.
Yeah, not surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is amazing. So, anyway, leaving off on that note, I think we're going to sign off for the night.
Yeah, because we could probably do another one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
So many toys that you can talk about. Like, we didn't get into all the toys. Man.
Yes.
Yeah, we barely made it into the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. Now,
right, and sorry, I was going to say Mike actually had some words for Mighty Max specifically, which is the 90s toy line that I know very little about.
Same.
So hopefully he'll be on the next one.
Yeah, that's what I was looking forward to, really, because all I ever saw was the cartoon, which that was a great cartoon too.
Oh, it was so good. Oh man.
And it's always made me wonder about the toy line, because I didn't, I mean, I was older then, so I was mostly, if I was getting something, it was mostly comic or video game.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear Mike talk about that, so hopefully he'll be able to make it to another show about this.
Yeah, we could always reconvene in a few weeks and do another one. Maybe he'll be up for it.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Heck yeah. I think he also wanted to touch upon gadgets and gizmos and, like stuff like Lego sets and educational toys. So that would also be a fun divergence,
Yeah, we never talked about Lego, and man,
Nope. I had some of those when I was a kid.
I've got some near me right now. They put out a new Blacktron vehicle earlier in the year. One of my friends knew I was going to get it. Just ended up getting it for me for a gift.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
And I've got it sitting in front of me this was earlier in the year. I've just got it sitting right in front of me right now because I can't stop looking at it.
We'll definitely have to talk more about Legos another time. So, anyway, thanks to everybody who came tonight, and we're glad you stuck around. And if you want to see us come back and do another one of these, then can't see why not.
Oh, and it'll give us a chance to talk about those Jada Capcom figures. They're doing Street Fighter and Mega Man right now.
Oh,
they look
nice.
amazing for the price range too.
Yeah, I've got quite a few of them, and I've got the San Diego Comic-Con set of the Neo Metals or whatever everybody calls Mets. There's a pack of 6 of them.
Oh wow!
When we do the next show, I'll talk about what I had to pass up to get that because they put out some really great San Diego Comic-Con stuff. Oh, and good night, Sharon.
Yeah, good night, Sharon.
Thanks, Sharon.
So, all right. As usual, we'll be back next week with something else. I'm not saying what yet. But, yeah. And as always, buy my books.
Buy my books.
Buy my book. And, so we'll catch y'all next time.
Good night and good weekend.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Have a fun.